Jarvis, drop my needle.
Hello, this is the hardcore legend Mick Foley, and if you are interested in listening to idiots, you came to the right place. Have a nice day.
Woo! That's an attention getter.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot.
What we're dealing with here is a complete lack of respect for the law.
Oh my God, he's an idiot.
You know, of course, that you're out of your jurisdiction.
Personally, I think you're an idiot.
But that's the evidence in the car.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Always like to keep my audience riveted.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, friends and fiends, and welcome to Free Range Idiocy, the podcast about everything, but mostly just the stuff we like. Well, WWE rolled out Survivor Series this past weekend, their second longest running closed circuit / pay-per-view / premium live event / just open up your wallet and give us your damn money and nobody gets hurt event. And the 37th annual edition of the Thanksgiving night / weekend tradition has plenty of action and surprises along with some pretty, by the book booking. So what did your humble idiotic servants think? We break it all down for you in this episode 147. It's the 2023 Survivor Series War Games review, baby. I am your Uncle Todd, and with me, as always, is the man who lays claim to inventing the again, the spit got me. I am your Uncle Todd, and with me, as always, is the man who lays claim to inventing the church of steak. A steak stuffed inside a chicken and stuffed inside a turkey. He has been my partner in idiocy for over 2 decades, and someday we'll get a representative from the Food Network to do a special on him. I give you the man they call Tim.
Greetings and salutations, my friend. How are you?
I am, well, back in the dumpster fire business, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a hell of a month this year, this week, and the beer drinking sign is officially on here at the Uncle Todd Estate. But other than that, I'm doing great.
Pass go. Do not collect $200.
Oh no, there's no $200 to be collected. Let me tell you. How are you doing, sir?
I am well. The bourbon drinking sign is also lit. So
yes, and for both of us, I'm just going from our pre-production meeting. I'd say that we were both after Thanksgiving. We are both definitely within the fatty McButterpants range. I think. Both of us just, God,
disgusting. Just disgusting.
Like Marlon Brando at the end of Apocalypse Now, just like smearing gravy all over ourselves. Like, It's just pathetic and yet also lovely at the same time. But yeah, we've got a whole lot to talk about this episode. But first of all, let's get ourselves here into the Week in Geek.
The Week in Geek.
Feels so funky.
What do we got going on this episode, sir?
Well, it is a glorious day if I can get some ivories being tickled. I have to report, sir, that my team...
By the way...
Yes, sir?
Glorious is no longer in the soundboard.
What? I didn't think so. That too. This one goes out to Quick Slants.
Glorious.
Mixing them together? I'll take this too. Well, Quick Slants, we went from a paltry 500 team in 4th place to now 6-5-1. And 3rd place in fantasy football.
So you're 5-6-1?
6-5-1.
6-5-1. Well, soon to be 6-6-1, which
well, no, I think we'll be 7-5-1 because Debo is back, ladies and gentlemen. Debo Samuel posting me some 25 fantasy points this week, going crazy. Right behind him, Brandon Ayuk both are from San Francisco. He posted 13. Michael Pittman Jr. 20. Derrick Henry 38.
Once again, you can tell that Tim won the game because all of a sudden now we're getting an in-depth rundown of his box score.
Rahamdre Stevenson of the New England Patriots. New England Patriots running back, who would have thought, posting 41 points. It was a phenomenal week. So I am above 500. I will remain above 500.
For now.
Thwart Uncle Todd's prediction. His curse that he has somehow put on my team has now been broken, and it's all smooth sailing from here. We have, let me just check the schedule. Let me check the schedule here, ladies and gentlemen. We have 3 more weeks before the playoffs. Yes, thank you for the whatever that is, the turkey trot. You
put the whammy on you right there. That's it.
All right,
giving you the evil eye.
Indeed, indeed. So much to celebrate. A lot of glorious feelings going on in the world of the fantasy gridiron
for this week.
Moving on from that, we are coming off of a holiday weekend, an absolute just disaster of diet of any sort of adhering to any dietary restrictions, rules, or anything.
Gluttony Incorporated was what I believe is.
Good Lord Almighty. We ended up so our Thanksgiving was we had my wife's family over. We actually catered in the turkey breast and 2 sides. We did some Brussels sprouts and some mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes had the skins there. It was nice, creamy, just amazing mashed potatoes. Brussels sprouts were phenomenal. Turkey was great, and then we had other sides and desserts the family brought. Everything was good, top to bottom. Friday, though, was, I think, the real Thanksgiving for my family, because my wonderful wife cooked up all these like appetizers. We set up our tree, we got it decorated, and my God, like from the hours of 10 to like 6, I was just like eating and eating. And I told Uncle Todd I had plans to have like a nice evening bourbon at the end of it, and the stomach was revolting at that point. It said, "You've done me wrong. Stop now." Good Lord, stop putting anything into me.
Yeah, that will happen. That will happen.
And then our weekend, we had a good weekend with our sons. Just relaxed, played some of that Atari that I was talking about last episode. We got some
one with like
Revenge going.
None of the good games on it.
Come on now. We had boxing. The boxing game was good. We pummeled each other. It was fun. Basketball game was just plain sad to play. It's just, oh God.
Do they have combat?
I think they do.
I hope so. It's a game that came with the 2600.
I believe they do. Yep. So it was fun. It was a good weekend. How was your weekend? How was your Thanksgiving holiday, sir? Who won the great gravy? I don't know what to call it. A contest that you and
the gravy cook-off.
The gravy cook-off.
I like to think. Well, okay. So let's backtrack just a bit. And first of all, I have a question for you: real tree or artificial tree?
Real tree.
Okay, good. Just making sure that we're on the same page.
Watered it just before the show started.
Good man. Our Thanksgiving started a little bit early. My wife and I have been trying to get a property for years now, and it finally went through after like 8,000 hoops to jump through. So we closed on our property on Tuesday.
Wow.
And my wife's first thing she said was, "We're going to get bourbon afterwards," because I have now brought her over to the dark side, and she is fully in the camp of
you have 2 converts now to your on your docket.
Exactly. She is a bourbon drinking lady, which is great. And I was like, "Yes, ma'am, we can do that." And even better was the fact that our mortgage originator gave us a bottle of Jefferson's for a closing gift, which was lovely.
Jefferson by the Sea?
No, it wasn't Jefferson by the Sea or Ocean. It was just Jefferson's, which is fine. Okay. Right. It's an exceedingly drinkable bourbon. Oh my gosh, I always forget how good it is, especially for the price point. So after we did our closing, everything, we went to get lunch, and Kim's very much is a Woodford Reserve sort of gal. That's her thing. I'm not. Not that I don't like Woodford Reserve. It's just not my favorite. But I was like, well, if we're going to celebrate, and we went to this local place down the street from where we live, and they have some different selections on there. They have some kind of what people might consider unicorns every so often, and they had Blanton's Gold Edition, which is I believe a 103 proof, for $32 a pour.
Nice.
And I was like, well, if we're celebrating,
is that a single or a double?
Mazel tov. Well, actually, it ended up being a little bit less for me because he gave me basically everything that was out of the bottle, and it didn't quite make it to a double.
Okay.
So he gave me a bit of a discount on it. I didn't get the cap. I asked him if I could have it, and he said, nope, I need this letter. However, he gave me a different one that he had an extra. He had an extra S, so I got the S. I'm slowly collecting my Blanton's cap so I can get it on the oak stave.
Nice.
So that was good. And then so the follow-up to that, how it relates to Thanksgiving, is we had it was mostly just our family, and then we had some friends over. And afterwards, Kim and I are having some of the Jefferson. And our friend, who really doesn't drink that often, was like, let me try some of that. And she was really liking it. And I was like, that's just how good this bourbon is. Like someone who's not a bourbon drinker, not even really that much of a drinker, was drinking it, was like, oh, this is fantastic. I'm like, that's different. As far as the gravy cook-off, I kind of feel like I won because Kim was making her regular gravy and I was making mine. And she actually told me how much she liked the gravy that I made. So I kind of feel like I won on that.
Nice.
It didn't quite pan out the way that I thought it was going to. I neglected to buy one ingredient.
Oh.
The recipe calls for a dry cider.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't have no dry cider. So I didn't even have any cider. And so I tried adding a little cooking sherry, figuring maybe that'll kind of the alcohol do its thing and all that.
Yeah.
So I think I was missing like the apple, taste to it. But it's a very different gravy. It's not a normal turkey gravy. And I think it's so I got it from a Gordon Ramsay YouTube video. I'll put it in the show notes where he does like these Thanksgiving recipes. And the turkey that he's describing that he was making he says it's more of a gamey taste.
Okay.
Like that's what he kind of likes about it. So I'm guessing that because this gravy is very much, it has a lot of lemon, and it's not as dark, it's not as rich, but it kind of has a very bright flavor. I'm guessing that would kind of pair up with a more gamey turkey as opposed to like just the Butterball turkey that we got. Not Butterball,
right?
Brand, but a Butterball style turkey. I don't know. It's just what we always get.
Yeah.
So it was good. I can't say that it's something I would want to make all the time. However, next time I just need to make sure I have some cider so I can get a true taste of it. But it actually came out really good. I thought it was
nice.
I thought it was good. It was just very different. Wasn't quite what I was expecting.
Okay.
But I'm still going to claim that as a win. I mean, if the person you're competing against likes yours better.
Of 2023.
I am. And you know what?
I think you need a little cult of personality for that, my friend.
No, I think I need a little this.
And there goes the shimmy. The shimmy, the shuffle.
Yeah, baby, because you get that gravy going, you get funky real bad.
Oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Anyways,
all right.
Yeah, then just a whole bunch of overindulgence over the weekend, and just like Thanksgiving dinner after Thanksgiving dinner after Thanksgiving dinner, and then just and so here's the thing: like Friday, I actually spent a good portion of Friday morning into early afternoon cooking, because after we finished our dinner Thursday, I set up my turkey stock. So I get the carcass and I have all the vegetable ends I've been saving and all that, throw that in, boil it down. And the friend who came over, she's like extraordinary cook. And I was like, how long do you let your stock boil? She's like, I'll actually let it simmer overnight.
Okay.
I was like, okay, let me do that. So I
run the oven overnight for the whole night.
Well, you have it on a burner.
Okay.
And so we have,
that's what I mean. It's on a burner for the whole night, though.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, and it's the biggest stock pot that I have. So there's no danger that all that water is going to boil off. And you have it on like the lowest setting, like you put it on a real low simmer.
Okay.
And so that simmered all night.
Oh, nice.
And then I was letting it cool, and then I made a shepherd's pie with all the leftover potatoes. Nice. And then what else did I do? There was one other thing I did. Oh, I made a turkey stew, a turkey soup, turkey noodle soup.
Nice.
With some of the leftovers and all that, and with my new stock. And I got all that kind of made and portioned out and into the freezer. So we've got like all the leftovers frozen and ready to go. And so I was a busy little beaver on Friday, but it stopped me from gorging myself for the remainder of the weekend either.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Not a bad way to go.
I do have to tell a real quick story. I said this. I told Uncle Todd this in the pre-show, the pre-production meeting. My wife makes these wonderful treats. It's basically a pretzel with a Hershey's Hug on top that's melted, and then she puts she sets a bunch of these up on a cookie sheet, puts them in the oven, gets them so the hugs are soft, and then when she brings it out of the oven, she'll push a M&M down on top, kind of squishing it, and then she'll put that in the fridge and cool it, and it becomes the most glorious chocolate treat you've ever had.
Salty and sweet, dude.
Salty and sweet. It is
crunchy.
Just amazing. Oh my God. So it's last Wednesday, and my son and I, Thanksgiving Eve, my son and I see, our youngest was home, we're making lunch, and we see a big container of these. And so he and I just start grabbing a handful, and we're just like popping them in our mouth because it's just,
as you do. It's
candy. It's multiple pieces of candy. And my wife comes down and she says, "Okay, you guys can't eat that. It's for part of our Thanksgiving dessert tomorrow is just having these candies." And it was just one of those moments. I can't do it justice describing it, but the way my son and I looked at each other with this impish grin on our faces, like, "Ooh, our hand was caught in the cookie jar." And after that, she's like, "One moment," and she basically writes down, "Do not eat until Thanksgiving," puts the Post-it note on top. We're done at that point.
Essentially laying down the law.
Laying down the law. It is all done. It is so say we all. We refrained up until dessert on Thanksgiving Day, at which point my nephew and nieces or my nephews and niece saw their uncle go a little hog wild with the candies. But they did not doubt me afterwards when I said, "You cannot just have one. You will have one and you will come back." And sure enough, one of my nephews, he just kept coming back for more and for more and for more. And I'm like, "See, I told you."
That's danger food, dude. I'll just chain eat those.
And I ate a bunch of them on Friday too. I said, "The hell with the diet over these 2 days. I'm just going to enjoy it." So
you could lead me into any trap you want. You just leave a trail of those things.
Oh,
I'd be done.
Amazing.
All right. So enough of reliving the gluttony. I feel like I just gained 5 pounds talking about that. So what's up next, sir?
Well, some interesting news last week. This is from TheVerge.com, and it was published on other various news sources. But Dave Filoni gets the keys to the Star Wars franchise, or if we just put this into Ric Flair terms, since we're somewhat of a wrestling-centric show at times, or today, Dave Filoni is the man of Star Wars.
Yes, he is.
He is now Chief Creative Content Officer, and what that now will enable him to do, based on some of the quotes from this article and from others that I read, is while he has been involved in many of the Star Wars properties as of late, he tends to be kind of pulled in after the concepting and a lot of the prerequisites have already been kind of done, and so he will now be at the head of that process and will be able to shape and mold, I think, a lot of the things that start into the content pipeline for Star Wars. So what does that mean for us? It means hopefully with him at the helm and seeing what he's done with Rebels, the great work he's done with Favreau on Mandalorian, the Ahsoka series we just saw, that was just amazing. He clearly has a love of the franchise, but he also seems to have the spirit and kind of the mindset of Lucas when it comes to the kind of stories that Lucas was trying to tell. And I feel like in some ways Filoni is maybe a little bit more of a capable storyteller. When you consider Lucas's struggles with writing and the way he doesn't really enjoy that process, I'm just wondering if we'll just be entering an era where we'll see a resurgence or a renaissance, if you will, of Star Wars content with him at the helm. So I'm very bullish on this, but maybe I'm a little too optimistic. Sir, bring me back down to earth.
I'm not going to bring you down to earth. I am going to take a little issue with Lucas in terms of storytelling. Because I think for a lot of the faults that Lucas has is he does know how to tell a story. He knows how to get people interested in the story, because we wouldn't still be talking about Star Wars this many years after. There wouldn't be a want to continue all of it, and there wouldn't be this fascination with it if he didn't know how to tell a story. He came up with the whole thing. And I was reading something the other day that was very interesting to me because I never really thought about it. And just how in the first 10 minutes of A New Hope, he establishes the universe as pre-existing, as already in progress. Because, talking about Vader saying, you won't get away from me this time. Or, and he does that several times in that first beginning period to establish, like, this is not the first time that that he's been dealing with Leia. This is not the first time that they've been trying to outwit the Empire. Like, this has been going on for a while, and it puts you in the middle of the story, which you have to ask George if that's really what he was trying to do, or if it was just because that was what was in his mind and he wrote it that way, and afterwards you're like, oh yeah, it sounds like a really good thing. That's exactly what I meant to do. I don't know. But he did craft a story that was interesting and worth continuing in a universe that people love. So I can't give him a hard time there. What I will say is I think there is an expiration date on some creators working with their creation, and that it just what they're doing just doesn't necessarily jibe with the world at that point. The outer world, not their own world. And so I feel like Filoni has a big time reverence for Lucas and for what Lucas has created. But I feel like he's a little bit more in touch with how to tell that story and how to expand that story going forward in a way that kind of resonates with people. Now, of course, as I've said many times, there's a bunch of Star Wars out there who are just, whining little twerps who are going to piss on everything that isn't the original trilogy. But I mean, the man is obviously knows how to deal with this. So I'm bullish on it. I think it'll be great. I think he's done a worthy enough job. And at this point, no matter what people, I know people like to poo-poo like the kind of the ending of Ahsoka, and there was a bunch of people, again, the same twerps, and even other people were like, oh, it's nothing. But you know what? Look at Mandalorian, look at Rebels, look at this, and tell me that this guy has not given you a lot more to this universe than there ever was before. Yeah. And that that he is not trustworthy going forward. I find it hard to believe that unless someone has a real axe to grind, they can't agree with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, one concern I have or had, because I feel like maybe this is the genius of Filoni, is, the upcoming movie he's making, which will kind of be like this version of, Star Wars version of Avengers Endgame, where it's going to bring all these different franchises together with Thrawn. And, the concern I have is, I don't feel like we're at a point where Thrawn's a real threat. I mean, like he's been introduced, he's shown his ability, but he hasn't, in my mind at least, been built into this, galactic threat that's going to render the need for all of these groups to come together. So part of me is hoping that it isn't just one movie, but maybe he does a duology, or because it doesn't have to be a trilogy. Maybe it can just be 2 movies, but there's got to be, like, in my mind, some time given to really establish Thrawn as a villain. You know what I mean? Like we've just scratched the surface with him, and they did the right amount of exposure to him in Ahsoka. It wasn't, that show wasn't about him. It was a way to introduce him. But I have faith, because the guy clearly, like I said, he knows how to tell compelling stories in this universe, and so I think, in some ways, I almost hope it is reverse psychology, because if you come out and say, hey, we're going to do a new trilogy, you've already kind of set expectations with the audience.
Oh yeah. The worst thing they can do is like say, oh, this is a new trilogy, because you're setting up, like you said, that expectation, and you're shooting yourself in the foot. Just don't say anything. Just say, hey, this is a movie.
Right.
And if it happens to continue, then, or come out and establish that, like, yeah.
And I think that would be really wise, because I could see then, instead of a trilogy, I could see them doing, the first movie establishes how much of a threat he really is, and maybe leads to a cliffhanger. I mean, really similar to the Avengers. I mean, Avengers is really, the Infinity Saga is really a duology in a way, right? It's 2 movies, and you use the first one to And they did this. Like, we had seen Thanos in fits and spurts, but we never really got into him deep. And Infinity War goes deep on him, and then the bomb is dropped when, you know, half of all life is removed, including some of the heroes. And so you leave it on a cliffhanger, and then you come back in the second movie, and it's kind of like, how do they end up thwarting him? And so I think the same kind of treatment could be done with Thrawn, where you give him the space and time to establish himself as this threat. You leave it on a cliffhanger, and now, you know, because you haven't declared it a duology, now you got people hungry. What's going to happen next? You know, I mean, that's like the best thing this franchise needs, is like people like wondering what the heck comes now. Because I'm sure back in 1980, when they went to see Empire Strikes Back, maybe at that point they had said it was going to be a trilogy, but the way that movie ended, and what makes that movie so amazing, is the way it ends and the twists that happen along the way. And now it's like, how is this going to resolve? You know, people are invested in going back when you come out with that next picture. So I'm looking forward to what he's going to bring, because I think he brings you know, just an energy to the franchise, and brings you know, just a creative spirit and creative, you know, I hate to say the word energy again, but I feel like there's just an energy there with him, that things tend to be told in a way that are compelling and seem to grow, you know, the franchise, rather than, you know, make it, you know, kind of worse or retracted a bit. If that makes sense. Contracted a bit. So
yeah, no, agreed.
All right. Finally, this one comes by way of Uncle Todd, and this is from insider.com. At first, when I read this article, I thought this was basically a continuation of a saga that has started at the very inception of this podcast. A very long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, there was an article that was published about Sam Esmail coming out with a Battlestar Galactica reboot, and that is yet to come to fruition.
Please, no!
I agree. And this article, which I skimmed very quickly and thought that was about Sam Esmail, it is not. Let me be clear. It is not about him, so I am not sued or in any way, shape, or form. But is basically about Netflix having handed a director millions of dollars to make a sci-fi series, but ends up the director squanders it on stocks, crypto, and flashy cars.
Well, now, and to be fair, like, he had an original budget that supposedly he spent on the series, and then he requested more money.
Yes.
They gave it to him, and that was the money that he squandered. So it wasn't the entirety of the budget. It was something like $12 million or something, if I'm remembering right. But still, a substantial amount of somebody else's money to use.
And there's nothing to show for it, is what I took away from the article. There's no show that's going to get, you know, produced or anything. So the director in question is, I guess he directed 47 Ronin.
And that's it.
Or if you're Jimmy Dice, Ronin. Carl Eric Rinch is his name. But apparently, he scored a $61.2 million production deal to craft a sci-fi series for Netflix. Let's see. The Times reported that Netflix had sunk 44.3 into his show Conquest by March 2020, but that Rinch then told the company he needed more money or production would cease. They gave him an additional $11 million, but that money wasn't all spent on producing the series. Instead, he used 10.5 of it from funding to play the stock market. And then
where he lost big time.
Yeah, cited court filings and financial documents from his divorce, and eventually lost $5.9 million in trading. He then pivoted the crypto market, but he was luckier that time. He bought Dogecoin, which turned Rinch's $4 million bet into nearly $27 million. And then he took that money and spent 8.7 of it on fancy cars and designer goods.
Whoops.
So it's almost like this guy was living out a little midlife crisis there.
Oh, totally.
So despite spending more than $55 million on the series, Netflix has yet to receive any episodes from the director. So you understand, when I read that line, I'm like, it's got to be Sam Esmail, right?
Yeah. That was actually the first thing I thought, too.
So, it's rare to read a company get worked into a shoot, so to speak. But...
You know, but the thing is, here's the deal. Like, I have almost no sympathy for Netflix in this situation.
No.
Because it was a poor choice. I mean, I can see taking a chance on the guy, but his movie, it wasn't like it was it was even a an underground hit or a cult classic or anything like that in the last couple of years. Like, this is like 10 years ago this movie came out, wasn't it? Wasn't it like 2012 or something? And he ain't done nothing since then? And you're like, sure, let's give him $60 million. And then, he says, oh, I need more money. He comes at you like, I need about $350. And sure. And you don't ask for any deliverables. You don't ask for a screening. You don't ask for like any proof that he's doing anything. You just cut him a check for like $11.5 million and send him on his merry way. Well, you know what? You're damn foolish enough to do it. You deserve to get screwed. I'm sorry, but that's got to be one of the most ludicrous business decisions I've heard of in the last few years. And there's been a few. I mean, it's right up. You know what? I would say this business decision is almost as egregious as what's happened with Muskrat and Twitter, just with like the malfeasance and stupidity that has gone on. It's close, because the thing is, like, it's not like this is a one-time thing. Like, Muskrat going and buying his own social media platform is stupid and all that, but you can be like, well, he's rich and he has hubris, and he's also apparently insane. So he was on a ketamine rant and decided to buy Twitter. Whatever. Netflix does this all the time. Like, this is their business. They produce. They are now in the production business.
Yes,
they do this a lot. It's not like this is their first deal, and yet they still did this.
Yep.
Like, what's the approval process? Is it essentially like a cat that just has like two cards in front of it, and whichever one it swats first, they're like, all right, Mr. Whiskers says you get the money. Here you go. Like, what the hell's going on in Netflix?
You win.
Yeah, it's like, here, take this 32-sided die. If you manage to get over 100 in 3 rolls, here, Merry Christmas. Like, what the hell? What the hell is going on?
I don't know. I do not know. Yeah, it's like rolling 19 on a 20-sided die. You know what I mean? It's like,
oh my gosh, it's great. It's absurd.
It's just so surreal, and I don't know. You read these stories, and
yet we can't get a venture capitalist behind us for this podcast.
Well,
I feel ashamed of myself, honestly.
I've already written down in my notes here for what have we learned in this episode. I just threw a little tidbit in there. Netflix, if you're willing to give Uncle Todd and the man they called him $350, we'll take it.
We don't need nearly that much. I need about $12,000 to get out of this basement. That's all I need. Netflix can find that in their couch cushions. Holler at a brother, would you?
Uncle Todd's ready for a new iMac. You know what I mean? Can you help a brother?
I'll tell you what. Make it 15, just to be sure. I got a couple of upgrades I want to make.
Of course.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Well, after that sordid tale of money run amok, that, my friends, is the Week in Geek.
Oh, well, thank you, sir, for sleuthing and slithering all over the internet and making us all feel a little smarter by proxy, because we aren't Netflix. And now on to the main event, which would have been Survivor Series 2023 War Games, the 37th iteration of Survivor Series. Of course, we don't have any Survivor Series matches to be seen in this pay-per-view, which I still think is kind of tragic. I think they easily could have done something different here and wound up with at least one Survivor Series match. I think it could have happened, but whatever.
But before we get into it, can I just share one thing just about Chicago and wrestling in Chicago? Because, and I'm sure you probably have listened to this already, but Jim Cornette.
I actually haven't listened to Uncle Corny's breakdowns yet.
Okay, so in listening to what we will talk about eventually with the return of CM Punk, he makes this phenomenal point or fantastic point and does it in that typical Uncle Corny, just while he's laughing sort of, voice. His first question is, how much money do people in Chicago have? Because this is what he can't fathom. So Friday night SmackDown emanates from the Allstate Arena. They sold somewhere in the range of 15,800 or so tickets.
Okay, not a sellout.
Close to 16,000 tickets.
Yeah.
Saturday is Survivor Series, also emanating from the Allstate Arena in Chicago. They sell 16,800 tickets.
Yeah, they had a sellout then, didn't they?
I believe Wednesday for AEW Dynamite. I think it was AEW Dynamite. They maybe rustled up about 6,000-7,000.
I mean, about right.
Uncle Corny is like incredulous about this. He's like, I don't know how much spending money people have, but for crying out loud, they just ran 32,000 fans over the course of 2 nights, and Tony Khan can't even get 7,000 people in a building.
And they're all going to be on one side of the arena, folks.
They are, much to Adam Copeland's chagrin.
My gosh. Yeah.
But it is kind of funny, like, how Chicago is kind of, at least as of late, this like wrestling mecca sort of area where it's like all these kind of big happenings, Punk coming back, with AEW in 2021.
Multiple times.
Multiple times, in Chicago. And, again, a lot of it's because of the following he has and how the fans react to him. But no, it's a strong wrestling, kind of fan base, I think. And even in the press conference after Survivor Series, Triple H talked about how much, and I'm sure some of this was just blowing smoke, but just how much he would enjoy wrestling at Allstate Arena because
said it was his favorite arena.
Yeah,
I'm like,
arena because of the acoustics.
Heresy. I
So
mean,
loud.
MSG. Oh,
I know.
Somewhere Vince was just cursing at his TV. Of course, he was on the Home and Garden Network, but because he couldn't figure out how to change the channel. But still,
Somewhere Vince was doing what Mickey Goldsmith did in Rocky 1 when like Apollo was saying bad things about Rocky, and he like throws ya bum,
spitting his soup and crackers all over the bed.
Oh my gosh!
Which actually, I bet that was closer. You're probably actually 100% accurate.
Burgess Meredith, what a treasure! What a treasure that man was.
I say we knock his block off. Absolutely,
you bum. All right.
That was Rocky 2, by the way. That was Rocky 2.
Oh, was that Rocky 2 when he gets all okay?
Yeah, because immediately afterwards he shows up at Rocky's house, like basically still in his underwear, just with a long coat on. And that's what that's the only thing he says. I say we knock his block off. Yeah. Rocky's like, absolutely. I'm like,
you're gonna eat thunder and crap lightning, kid.
Yeah. You're gonna chase this chicken. Oh my god. Anyways, yeah, no, I mean, and the thing is, like, the crowd was hot, although they were just the CM. It didn't take very long for the CM Punk chance to start, and at the drop of a hat. And I actually give overall, because I mean, we're starting with overall thoughts here. I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
Overall, I think the workers, the wrestlers, the in-ring performers did a very good job of keeping the crowd away from that. Like, they did a good job of still creating space, but they did it in a way that, they gave the crowd something so that they didn't start chanting CM Punk out of boredom a whole lot.
Right.
Like they did a good job of keeping the crowd into it. I will say that. Now, I mean, far and away the best reaction of the night was the very end. I mean, unquestionably, that is one of the loudest pops I have ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Austin rock-like.
First for Orton. I mean, Orton got a really good reaction.
Oh, he did, but nothing compared to Punk. I'm sorry. No. Like, everything else was a 5 or 6, maybe a 7. Randy was 8, maybe 8.5. Punk 11.
Yeah.
I mean, it was absurd. Absurd.
I will throw in part of, I think, what you are complimenting, though, is whether like, I don't know if you knew this or not, but I do credit WWE and the mind, the leaders there in making the call Monday night to have Cody name Orton.
Yes.
The fifth member of the team, because had they not done that,
oh yeah,
I think this would have been a very different sort of crowd dynamic, because everyone would be hanging their hopes on Punk being the 5th guy.
Oh yeah, as soon as that War Game match started, it would have just been CM Punk the whole time.
Absolutely. So I think they were extraordinarily wise in going ahead and spoiling that surprise and bringing Orton in. and or just making everyone aware Orton is the fifth guy.
Yeah.
Now they played with it a little bit over the course of the night, saying, "Oh, he hasn't shown up yet," and I think they were doing that more to play into the Cody Seth sort of drama in the same way in the women's match they were kind of playing into the Charlotte Becky drama. But it also I thought it was going to backfire on them a little bit. I'm like, you guys are kind of playing with fire here a little bit, because if your main event is all hinging on whether Randy's showing up or not, you're going to have the whole crowd going CM Punk, because they're going to think he's going to be, stepping in for, like, there was even a rumor like the day of where someone was saying, they thought they read or heard that, Cody might get taken out in the beginning of the event, and they would shoehorn Punk in as kind of his, like, stand-in or something like that. Thankfully they didn't do that. So, so to your point, I think the setup of this was well done to try to diffuse what would have been kind of an unruly crowd.
Yeah, no, totally. And I imagine in Uncle Corny's review of the premium live event, he must have been beside himself with the number of "we want tables" chants, because he hates that. He hates how they're chanting for effing furniture.
That was the other big pop, though. When you talk about the loud pops, did you hear the crowd go nuts when in both the women's and the men's matches, when they would pull the table out, the place went freaking ballistic.
Which is one of those things where I can kind of understand Corny's frustration and his curmudgeonly approach to that, because it was getting annoying to me. I'm like, just shut up and enjoy the match. Like, I would have actually preferred that one of those matches just had no weapons involved. Like, seriously, make or if it was the men's event, make that bull rope coming out special by that being the only thing. Something like that. But I mean, we'll talk more about that. But that was an overall thing that I was like, it's just so friggin' lame that, like, it's like we're going to start with the kendo sticks, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, fine, but now it's just turning into basically an Extreme Rules match, and that to me takes away from it a little bit. Not to mention, here's my big observation. I feel the War Games match is just too effing long before the War Games match actually starts.
Yeah.
They need to quicken this mother up in a big way. Like this whole, what is it, like 5 minutes for the first two, then it's like every 3 minutes. I thought it was interesting that they did mention that if someone escapes the cage, that's a forfeit. I don't remember that from the last one.
Yeah.
Was that a new stipulation, or do you remember that from the last?
I remember that was part of it. I think that's been a standing rule since the very beginning.
I mean, I get why they don't have why they don't have the top on, because isn't that original War Games, like they had the top on the cage and everything?
They did, and I think that led to more problems than it solved, because like you had cases, I think, where like Sid Vicious would try to powerbomb someone, and when you go to bring them up, the guy his head would hit the top.
Well, yeah, but that's also because back in the day, like those cages were flimsy as hell. Like they didn't do the same construction they did, which they could easily do. But I understand why they don't, even just for the fact of you getting those overhead camera views, because those were spectacular.
Yeah,
I get that. So what I would suggest, honestly, I think, dude, 3 minutes to start off with the first two people in there, then every 2 minutes.
Okay.
Shave it down, because it drags. Like, I don't care how good the storytelling is. Once you get into that segment of like, okay, the one team has the advantage, back and forth, that's got to go quicker, man, because every time there was a certain point it started to drag a little bit, and then you finally get everyone in, and it's like, now let the War Games begin. I'm like, oh my gosh, the match is just bloody starting.
Yeah.
If you were to do that, you save how many minutes at the beginning of each of those matches, and you can throw one more match into this pay-per-view, which would have been nice to have, just something different, Not that the matches were bad. It's just like, it would have been nice to have even more variety in this, rather than too big. It's almost like Royal Rumble, where it's like, okay, we know there's two really extraordinarily big matches, and then there's only room for a couple more, because you don't want to have a 5-hour pay-per-view.
Right. I think what's lacking right now is that first part before the War Games matches started. There's no consequences with it. And I know the concept is that it's meant to be this violent, vicious thing where, it's kind of a free for all. And then when the match starts, then, there's something official that can actually happen with the match. But this is where I wonder if what they need to do is blend the Survivor Series concept into the War Games, where there is a part of the match, maybe the beginning part, where it's elimination only. And there's no win that can be scored. And then when all members have finally entered, then the match begins and whoever scores the next submission or pinfall wins, because then there's actually like stakes. Because if you, during that first part, like let's say the Judgment Day eliminates 2 or 3 of Cody's crew in that beginning part, and now it's 5-on-2 or it's 5-on-3 or something like that.
Yeah,
but then that match takes on a different tone, because now the underdog team has to really be smart about it brings a strategy element. The problem that I find where I feel it falls flat is it's 5-on-5, or it's lopsided leading up to the 5-on-5, but it's like that whole first part, like what did it actually accomplish? Like everyone's still in the match, everyone is still active, everyone is still going. So it's like, what did that beginning part even do? Like, no one's injured, no one's maimed, no one's really knocked out of the match. Like that is what I thought Dusty's intent was when he first did War Games with like the Horsemen and him, was there was like an intent to maim and to hurt.
Yeah.
And so the idea was when you got to the match, not everyone was, Copus Mentis at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, how about if you did it like this? How about if you almost incorporated, because I like the idea of the elimination. I just don't know how it would necessarily work. So here's what you could do. You could take this in a hockey direction. So like when you get a power play in hockey, if you score a goal, then the power play is over.
Yep.
So when you have the first 2 people in there, there's nothing that can happen. Once you get a man advantage or 1 minute advantage, person advantage, then if in the next 2, even if you say 3 minutes, go back to the original times just to keep it less confusing. Forget my idea. In those 3 minutes that you have the advantage, if you get a pinfall or a submission on the other team, when you have the advantage, that person's eliminated, but then no matter how much time is left, they automatically bring in a new person.
I see.
From that team that just got an elimination. So it takes away, you don't get that far ahead of it. So you can start going through them all, but at a certain point, like you need to, there has to be some sort of strategy from so you can talk about like, well, they want to eliminate this person, but this person, they want to just torture him.
Yeah.
Or they want to just let this one simmer because they don't want to lose their advantage.
Right.
So those sort of things. That might be a good way to do it, so it doesn't get so far out of hand, because you don't want it to be like 1-on-5, because then it's like, well,
yeah. Like you could book it so it's not so crazy in terms of that. Or maybe you do. Like it depends on the story you're trying to tell, right? I mean, if you're trying to tell, and again, I'm just spitballing here, but let's say, as part of Cody's story, right? 1-on-5, maybe he doesn't end up winning, but maybe he takes out 4 of the members of Judgment Day and just comes up a little bit short or something like that. I mean,
maybe it becomes once you have all the people involved, even you've gotten everyone's out of the cages, everyone's into the rings, then it becomes sudden death, like then the first pinfall or submission. So then you can have that one person eke out a victory believably somehow, you know what I mean?
Because
I guess
it introduced stakes, right? So if you go with the elimination concept, then let's go with like, what was it, Balor and JD McDonough, I think were the first 2 for the Judgment Day. Let's say they eliminate Jey Uso, right? Now, or who was the first one that went down? I forget. Was it Seth Rollins? Like, let's say they eliminate Seth Rollins, so Jey Uso runs down. Now it makes sense when he runs down, if he goes under the ring and grabs a chair, or he grabs a table, or he grabs like a kendo stick, it actually makes sense now, because he's going into a 1-on-2 situation. He's going to bring some heavy lumber with him to kind of even things out, to at least last until the next member of his team is then unleashed. You know what I mean? So that's where I feel like there's some interesting storytelling, dramatic sort of things they could do with it if they utilize that front half of the match as more of an elimination, less of a win-loss sort of thing. It's like, now the teams are incented to try to eliminate as many members of the other team as they can before the match actually starts.
Yeah.
So that they have the numbers advantage. Now you have a strategic motivation there.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's just this, yep, everyone comes in and everyone's doing their high spots and who's going to bring the tables in and who's going to bring, here comes Shotzi with the big garbage can lid or whatever, or not Shotzi, it was Kairi Sane was doing that. So that's where I feel like they could leverage their heritage a little bit in the Survivor Series concept to augment what I think is a great match concept, but it just, because I think they're trying to keep it, I don't know if they're trying to keep it PG or they're trying to avoid the blood aspect to it, but it's, I mean, when you go back and watch WCW War Games, it was a freaking vicious match. It was like, blood, guts, and, guys getting like, not injured for real, but just, going through the ringer. The whole concept of slamming the door into someone's head, I think, started there and done viciously, I think, by Arn Anderson. And so I just think that, to your point, I think, there's definitely room where they could augment it. Where I think it would be a nice blending of both organizations' kind of concepts, where you're taking this great concept from WCW War Games and combining it with Survivor Series and turning it into this really rich kind of storytelling device through this match. But
I agree. And it's not like I'm not saying it ruined my enjoyment of the night, but it did. It felt like it dragged, and it after a while it just becomes. Thankfully, they only have 2 of these matches, because I couldn't have taken a third, quite honestly, just as it's structured. But I like your idea. I think that'd be a good way to go. I think one of the other things that I don't know that I'll dock the individual matches for this. Mm-hmm. I will dock the entire event for the fact that, it was very much booking by the book. Like all the, the baby faces go over in the War Games matches. The champions retain. The only match that was kind of up for grabs, you probably could have predicted that Santos Escobar was going to go over Dragon Lee because he was a replacement.
He had to.
Yeah, he had to. So I mean,
they're building him up as a heel right now. So he's got to lodge some W's to be considered a threat to Mysterio.
So there was nothing really shocking in any of the match results.
Yeah,
they were satisfying and I will give them the credit for this. They managed to, because this could have been a bloody disaster. This could have been abysmal, but they managed to pull it off because they got the stories that they told and the way the performers told them and the way that I'm sure that the matches were crafted creatively speaking. They managed to tell stories that were satisfying enough that even though it was the result, they were kind of honestly, they were anti-Roman Reigns matches, because even though we knew you kind of got the result that you figured was going to happen, you were actually satisfied with the match instead of going like, well, that kind of was a wet fart in a paper bag, like, because the match wasn't even exciting.
Yeah.
Like these matches actually had excitement to them. There was spectacle to them. There was, there was highs and lows and laughs and everything. There was all that in there. So you kind of felt like, well, yeah, it's by the book, but it was, I still was entertained.
Yeah.
And they saved the big, the big surprise for the end, but that was kind of, if I had to, I would ding it probably a little bit. It's an overall event just for that. Like both the champs retained, the baby faces go over, and the other match, like, well, yeah, exactly how it had to turn out. So no surprises except for, some dude walking out at the end, which cool, but
You know who I'm actually going to call the MVP though of this event is
R-Truth.
Well, our truth gets a
I've been here the whole time.
What up? My bad.
Oh my gosh, all the R-Truth stuff.
Oh God. He's incredible.
You're not in the match. I'm not.
My
bad. I'm sorry, Kane. I'm sorry, people.
Or his whole like entering the Royal Rumble so he can eliminate Paul Heyman and Paul.
You're
I'm not in the match. He's in the match.
Big man.
It's like I am officially undeclaring from the Royal Rumble. And watching Brock Lesnar try to retain his like beastie, angry
he didn't
face.
even try. Like after
God,
about 30 seconds, he was so like, hard. "Okay, I'm done. You got me." Like there's no hiding this.
But my MVP for the event, and maybe you'll do a spit take when I say this, is actually The Miz.
I would actually agree.
He
will.
He didn't surprise me because I didn't think he could do it, but let's go back a couple months where he's getting beaten by LA Knight. He's basically fodder, for the rise of LA Knight. But the intensity that he brought to the match.
Yeah, no.
I know I'm kind of getting into a little bit of the review here, but I just felt like that was a Miz I haven't seen in a long time. And I thought they did a very good job framing the match where it did not seem out of place for him to be where he was in that match, taking Gunther down at some points of it. You know what I mean? Like it didn't feel forced. It felt like here's a guy who is actually, holding his own with someone who we all thought would just chop him to bits. You know what I mean? Like Gunther was just going to run through him like he was nothing. And I thought that match was brilliantly booked, and he looked more intense than I think I've ever really, seen him over the past several years. So, so it's I think it shows a little bit of faith the company has in him to have him elevate someone and then plug him into a program where he actually is elevated a little bit himself.
True. My co-MVP, again, this is getting to be almost like to Katie Sackhoff levels as far as like being totally in the bag for them. Rhea Ripley.
Oh gosh,
dude, her selling sometimes is unreal. I mean, she's a powerhouse. She can do whatever. She has charisma, just like she has a charisma aura around her that's like 6 feet around. Like, and I think Triple H said it best in the press conference. Like, she just has it, because I know I think I've said the exact same thing. Like, whatever it is, she has it. Mm-hmm. And in all levels. Like, I mean, my God, the woman's Instagram following is through the roof. And there's, I saw one video where I was like, oh my gosh, this is like disturbing. So she was in an autograph session and someone asked her to sign this piece of paper, and so she signs it at the top and writes, mommy is always on top, of course, and then signs Rhea, and then says, I licked right here, and puts an arrow, and then she licks the paper there, because that's what someone had requested. I'm like, all right.
That's funny.
Okay. Like, this is the same level as like rock stars signing people's butt cheeks and stuff. Like, this is where she's at. Yeah. And I'm sure she's just like, this is absurd.
Did you see in the match her spacer popped out of her ear?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, there's when she does a suplex on Zoe. I thought at first Zoe had done a move to her, and then I rewatched on Sunday, and it was a spot in the match. It was the middle of the match where she like really, it looked like she kind of brute forced a suplex with her. Like, I don't know if they messed up the timing or whatever, but she really looked like she threw it back. When she lands, you see one of the spacers from her bottom earlobe on her right pop out. And the ref is like right over there and scoops it up. And she just keeps going though. Oh, yeah. I mean, but yeah, to your point, when she
gets like some of those cells that she has, like getting a kick. Yeah. Like there was one where she just got the kick and she crumples. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes Stark look like $1 million. Like she just
or the headbutt she laid into Zoe.
Oh, those were great. I haven't seen her do that before, but I'm like, that's perfect for her. That is perfect for that character and who she is. Oh my gosh. And she's one of those people who's just like, so full disclosure, we're recording this, November 28th. Mm-hmm. And there's a WWE house show that's happening in Portland this coming Sunday. And I thought about getting tickets, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get tickets. And then someone was announcing today, they're like, well, yeah, this is happening. Cody Rhodes is going to be there. Seth freaking Rollins, Rhea Ripley. I'm like, oh, crap. Maybe I want to get for this. It'd be kind of cool to see Cody Rhodes and Rhea Ripley live. That'd be kind of, but anyways.
Are you going?
I don't know. I haven't made a call yet.
Let's
get into the event.
if you go buco bonus points, if you can get one of those people to say something about free range idiocy to put into the lead in for the podcast.
I'm not getting a backstage pass, dude. Like, do you think I know people? I don't know anyone.
No, they walk by, just say, "Hey, say free range idiocy" or something like that. You know what I mean? Just get a little.
Do you know how much
shameless plug
are to go to be like next to the ramp and the ringside area?
$5,000.
Well, not for a house show, but I mean, I think most of the seats were like between $30 and $50.
Jeez.
Which I'm not sheesh. I mean, when you think about what concert tickets are these days, it's actually not too bad.
No.
You know? No. And Portland's arena is
$50 for like front row?
Oh no, not front row. That's like middling to cheap seats.
Okay.
But I mean, Portland's arena is maybe 5,000-6,000 people. So it's not like you're that far away.
Yeah.
So it's like that would still be really cool. And this is the place where back in the day as a kid, I saw Hulk Hogan and Boss Man wrestle. So there's a little bit of nostalgia there for me.
That's cool.
But the ringside tickets are like $150 to $250, like just to be next to the ramp and the ring, like that, like the 2 or 3 rows around that. So I was like, yeah, that ain't happening.
Yeah.
Anywho, we got to get into this event because we're starting to run towards an hour here, sir.
Well,
so
we've already kind of talked about the event a little bit, but
we have to get into our rankings and the actual show itself.
A little bit of adjudication that happens in these review shows. So let's get into it. First match, we have Damage Control, Asuka, Bayley, Io Sky, Kairi Sane taking on Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, and Shotzi Blackheart. I think she's one of those, that name right there just needs to just go down to Shotzi. Just call her Shotzi.
Isn't it down to Shotzi? I don't even remember them saying Blackheart. They just said her Titantron was like Shotzi.
Oh, is it just okay, maybe that
I don't
was
remember them saying the second part of her name anymore.
Okay, all right. Well, anyways, getting into this match, why don't you go first? Thoughts on it?
I honestly, I mean, if I had to say, I think in comparison, because there's only 2 of these matches, as usual, I'm going to fall on the side of the fact that I think the ladies' War Games match was better than the men's. Sort of like the last couple of years, I felt like the ladies' Royal Rumble was better than the men's Royal Rumble. I think it is.
Can I ask this qualifying question? Would you say
it
was better from an action or storyline perspective?
It's tough for me to say with a storyline perspective because I am not watching the shows regularly.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So I know enough of.
I'll talk more about that. Go ahead.
I probably know a little bit more about what the men's stories have been, just because I think we have talked a little bit more about that in terms of Cody and all that. But I felt like the story within the match, and from what I gleaned from the commentators and the hype package and all that stuff, I thought the story within the match was pretty good. I dug what they were doing. I got to be honest here, folks. I did not take copious notes as I normally do, so I won't be able to call out individual moves unless the man they call Tim reminds me of them. There's a few that I remember, but really I'm just kind of going on the overall vibe of each match.
I got a few headlock takeovers here.
But I felt like this was pretty good. I still say it is amazing to me how over Becky Lynch is, and this is not a dig on Becky. I'm a big fan of Becky Lynch. I just think she's cool, and she has it. But man, some of her offense sometimes looks a real janky. Like her punches are not very good. But man, just Bianca looks so strong in this. Charlotte frickin' Flair, dude. Once again I say I don't understand how. Thankfully, they have someone like Bianca Belair, and they do actually have some credible opponents. But when you look at what Charlotte Flair can do, just from a physical wrestling standpoint, and how talented she is, it's so hard to understand like how she just does not permanently have the belt. Because you look at her compared to everyone else, it's like, well, yeah, she's just be
a division killer.
Yeah. Which is tough, but I think they've done some. I mean, granted, her taking like 6 months off at a time has helped, but she was fantastic in the match. I mean, didn't she have one? She had a moonsault off the top, didn't she? At one point,
who are we talking about?
Charlotte Flair.
Charlotte did, yes. Yes, she did. Yes, she
and then,
did.
of course, you had Io Sky, like, doing the freaking trash can over the head.
That was insane just because kudos to her for her balance.
Oh, yeah.
As she put that, so for those who didn't watch, Io Sky climbs to the top of the War Games cage, which is a somewhat stable double bar sort of,
Well, it's actually not even a double bar. It's like a truss. So it's like a
truss. Yeah, that's a good description. Yeah,
four tubes in a square. Like
so she has stability there, but what she ends up doing is she takes a garbage can, which, by the way, I love how we had our first winch situation where someone clipped a garbage can with a metal chain.
That was lame.
That sun gun up the side of the cage.
That was, I got to say, that part was lame. I didn't dig the whole erector set version of that, but the payoff is what made that work. Because at first I'm like, if this is just hoisting the garbage can into the ring, I'm going to be very upset. But the payoff made it worth it.
So Io Sky stands up on this truss. So she's like 15 feet up in the air.
Yeah.
And she balances herself, and then she takes this garbage can and puts it over herself.
Mm-hmm.
And then launches herself off into the ring as like this human, like, I mean, I don't mean to use this term, in this way, but almost like a suicide dive, you know what I mean? Of hurling herself toward her opponents and her teammates.
It was more of a cross body because she did turn that way. So suicide dive to me has always been like straight out. So she kind of went sideways, which, I mean, thank God she did. And of course, I'm guessing this was worked out beforehand. It's like, hey, because then we have the max area that we can catch you.
Yes.
Because you aren't going to know where you're throwing yourself.
I'm going to spread that momentum out across all you ladies.
Hopefully the garbage can gives you a little lift.
Yeah.
Slows you down a little. Jeez. But no, that was insane.
That was insane.
I thought they did a really good job with that match because, again, like going into it somewhat cold, and just only knowing a little bit here and there, I was able to be like, wow, this works. Like, I get the story that you're telling. And it's one of those things where if you need this material and that material, oh, well, you need to understand this. And it's like, well, then you've done a poor job with your movie or TV show, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you need this supplemental material, you've lost all your casual fans.
Yeah.
Sort of like what Marvel has done, or I guess you could say used to do in the first phases here. The last couple have been dodgy, but where they don't have the whole backlog of, you don't have to know everything about, Thor.
Mm-hmm.
They give you just enough that you need and then assume you'll figure the rest out. And then they just tell the story and you figure it out as you go, and you figure out about the character as you tell the story. And they did that in this match. Like, even going into it mostly cold, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm catching it as I can, and they're doing enough to let me know what's supposed to be happening.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a really good match. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I would have rather it been paced differently. The timing, cut down a little bit to get us to the actual match sooner. But still, I gave it 4 stars.
Okay.
I was very entertained by it. Thought it was great. Those high spots were fantastic. As I said about the overall thoughts, weapons, a little overkill, but this was the first match, so I was okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you, sir?
For me, I think, I think the match for me, action-wise, I don't mean to say it was better than the men's match. I think the men's match had good action, but I think if I were to rate the two matches, this one might give the nod action-wise versus storyline-wise. I wasn't as invested into the whole Charlotte Becky thing, and quite honestly, I felt that was a little bit overdone. It
totally was.
Like the hug they did was just,
oh yeah, that was
so like unnatural. It was just like so over the top and so.
Yeah,
I was just like,
I feel like that's a Becky thing. And God love her. I think she's one of the most overperformers in the women's division, and deservedly so. Yeah. You can tell she works her ass off.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But I feel like when the adrenaline gets running, sometimes she just ventures into this goofy area where it's like, no, just dial it back a little bit and be a little more real, please.
Whereas, okay, so compare that to Randy Orton. Randy, when he comes back and he gets in the ring, and this is something I've seen in him in the past, but it really materialized and manifested in this match when he came back, was how much you can tell his emotions play into what he does. You know what I mean? Like when he did that first hanging DDT and he's just like, he's like, yeah. And then he boom, nails it. I mean, like you can tell he's like just sucking in the energy from the crowd. Like he's just excited to be back. He's overwhelmed. He's just letting his emotions kind of drive what he does. With Becky, it was just, it was like too much. You know what I mean? It was just over the top. It was hammy. And it was like, okay, great. You guys made up. But it's like, you know, again, I don't watch the product that closely. I don't watch Raw and SmackDown every week, similar to you. I mean, I read about it, but I don't really watch it. And I knew this was all about kind of them, you know, kind of mending fences, because there was legitimate, you know, heat between the two of them at one point. But it just was like too much, you know, and that to me is where the women's match fell short. Is like, I don't feel like I felt the storyline part hasn't played out yet, because I think this served as a, you know, kind of a chapter in a longer story about Damage Control ultimately moving Bayley out.
Yeah. And I think they did. And I'd read a little bit about that when I kind of did I think it was, I can't remember what website it was. I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday.
Yeah.
But I felt like, you know, I read something about that and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And I thought
she's saving them all from pinfalls.
Oh no, and
then she's taking a finisher, which that didn't come off real great, to be honest with you. Like that spear was kind of weak looking.
Oh, totally.
Know?
But
the timing was off. But anyway.
But she making her the person who makes everyone look good, and then it sets her totally up for a face turn.
Yeah.
Because she's, you know, she was the strong link in that match.
But yet she was the one that got pinned. So now I can see how the others are going to look at her and be like, "You're done. You're the weak link in all of this."
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like even with the minimal information I had, I'm like, "Oh, this totally makes a lot of sense." And even if you're just catching on to that, and then you watch the next couple TVs, you might be like, "Oh, well, wow, that's rotten. They should know. Hey, Bayley, yay, Damage Control, boo!" Like that's what you want.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I thought it was a good match overall. What'd you give it, sir?
So I gave it 4.5 stars.
Ooh, you're like, and just looking at your scores here, you are like feeling, it's like the Christmas season. You're very generous here.
Well, I
will say, I
felt like the quality of the matches was good though. You know, like I didn't feel like there was a stinker of a match here. Like I felt like, you know, as much as we talked about how the build up to the War Games match, you know, once all the team members are freed from the cage and the match kind of officially starts, I felt like the action was good. You know, Kari Zane I thought was interesting with, you know, she kind of pulls out that kind of oversized, like, you know, garbage can lid, but man, like those spinning back whacks that she does with that were like, I mean, that was kind of cool. You know, I like that.
Yeah.
I like there was a point in the match where they brought out the kendo sticks and were just whooping on, you know, some of the face team members. I don't remember which ones were in there. But just whooping on them. But again, that kind of goes to the flatness of the consequence, which is like, great, they did that, but that didn't do anything to that team member. They were still active in the match. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so that kind of goes back to how they kind of use the match overall. And I think it'd be, you know, interesting to go with kind of that elimination concept.
Yeah. I like the fact that they've incorporated War Games into this. I think I think you're correct. It's due for an evolution, and a hybrid of the two, I think, is a great way to go.
And Belair was like insane. I mean, she comes in with the
my gosh,
just whipping them with that with the hair.
Yeah, she is again another one of those performers who it's like it's tough when you have Rhea, Charlotte, and Bianca,
and Asuka.
Between
Asuka
those
incredible.
Four, who realistically is going to beat them?
Yeah.
Even when you're talking kayfabe, like within the context of like professional wrestling, it's tough to find believable opponents.
Yep.
You know, credible opponents who can take them down.
Yeah.
Because they're all just like so physically imposing, and they're incredible workers. That's the other thing. They're just not like, they are not of the what's her face? She injures everybody.
Nia Jax.
Yes. Nia fracking Jax. Not like just, hey, she's big and, she hurts everyone legitimately. Like they can actually work, and make things believable, as opposed to just like, well, I'm big and imposing, therefore you should fear me. No, not really, because your offense looks like crap. And your attitude is like lacking, and you lack any kind of actual charisma. So no.
The only other notes I have on the match was when Kari came into the match, I thought her march to the ring was rather disturbing.
Oh, that's the other thing with this.
It was weird.
That was it was a skip. It was like a march skip.
Yeah,
that is a problem with these entrances anyways, is the fact that like in the situations where a teammate is getting their ass kicked, it goes back to like, I forget what the pay-per-view was, but it was like, there was an ECW pay-per-view where it was like Sandman was supposed to be someone's partner and didn't show up till like halfway through the match. And even though his partner is getting their ass just handed to them in the ring, Sandman does his full like 5-minute entrance before going, and they're continuing to beat the hell out of his partner, and he's still doing the beer and the kendo stick and the eggs, everyone's singing along to it. It takes like his sweet ass time getting to the ring, and that's what it felt like a couple times. Like it's like your partner is getting killed in there, and they're just like sort of moseying down the ramp. Like, get a move on, son. You aren't Roman Reigns.
It's that old wrestling trope of when the popular babyface is getting the crap kicked out of him. Why is no one running down to help him? Well, anyways, just to move things along here. The other thing I wanted to mention too was I love the whole idea, and it was funny how they had to kind of restack the chairs. But there was a spot where Kari Sane drops a elbow onto a stack of chairs on top of one of the face team members, and it was just I thought that was hysterical because she didn't flinch afterwards. Like normally there's a little bit of selling that happens after that, but no, she was just loving it. But overall, I thought it was a strong opener.
Oh, totally.
4.5 stars is what I would give it. I think my main gripes with it was I felt like some of the action was not as fluid as it could have been. It felt a little stilted, and like I mentioned, there was that one spot where Bayley is supposed to take the finisher, and it felt like their timing was off a little bit. So it just kind of took something out of the match for me. So but overall, I thought it was a strong one. Next match was Gunther.
Well, wait a minute. Are we going to talk about the big return of the night?
Oh, excuse me. I didn't have that in my notes, but I have it in the table.
I love how Triple H phrased that in the press conference after. Let's talk about the return that everyone's talking about, that everyone's been waiting for. R-Truth is back home.
That's right. That's right.
I was like, oh, damn you, Paul. You're good. You son of a bitch. No, that was fantastic, because I was watching that segment and I'm like, this is so stupid. I can't believe R-Truth. And then I'm like, oh, now this is wonderful.
Yes.
Because R-Truth can make anything good.
Yes. I mean, Otis was doing good, but whoever those two long-haired guys were, because again, I don't follow the product weekly, so I'm not up on who they are, but I was like,
which is weird because isn't Alpha Academy heels?
No, I think when I think they turned face a little bit ago, but Chad Gable, when he had his matches with Gunther, he actually became more of a baby face the way they played it up. And so I think the whole group has since become that. So they're a little bit of a comedy act, but also kind of an over babyface act. But yes, R-Truth came back with the ruffles.
So good. How long have you been here? I've been here all along. I'm like, what, in Chicago?
Yeah, 495, 24, 32.7.
That would be the best thing ever if that was just explained. Like, no, he's actually been touring around with WWE and just hiding out backstage for several years now. No one's noticed.
And like Paul Rudd, R-Truth doesn't age. The man looks exactly the same.
I know, it's scary.
It's scary.
Like Paul Rudd and R-Truth have paintings of them aging in an attic somewhere next to each other.
It's crazy, man.
That would be awesome. Is if you could get that for WrestleMania, just the two of them, just like sitting there toasting like a glass of wine, like, isn't it good? No one's figured it out yet.
That would be great.
Can we get that to happen? Pretty please.
That would be great. All right. Moving on to the next match. Gunther, the Ring General, defending his Intercontinental Championship against The Miz. And we kind of already talked about, a little bit of this with The Miz's performance. I was really impressed with the stiffness of the match, or at least what appeared to be the stiffness of the match. I mean, there were just nice, brutal shots back and forth. The chops were just ridiculous. I mean, Miz threw some strong chops, but man, when Gunther just lays in on the chest like that, you're just like, good God almighty. He sounds like he's been shot, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
But the intensity that the Miz brought, working on the knee, doing the Bret Hart figure 4 on the pole.
Oh yeah, that was nice.
The ring pole was such
like
a
cool lot of
combat.
actually like really solid technical wrestling.
Yes.
Which I was not expecting from the Miz. And I'm granted, I don't know that much about the dude's career, but I was like, oh, okay, we're heading this direction.
And I think that was part of the story they were telling, because part of where Gunther's lack of respect for the Miz was around him being more of an entertainer than a wrestler. And in thinking about it after the fact, it's like, this makes perfect sense. That the guy who's viewed as the entertainer comes out and is wrestling a very kind of Bret Hart technical wrestler sort of match, where he's going after the leg and he's being methodical about what he's doing. I thought it was a great move, where he grabs the turnbuckle pad and it comes loose, and he uses that as an opportunity to do some of his heel shtick.
Well, I did appreciate that, the fact that like Miz was still kind of Miz.
Yes.
Even though he's the baby face, and then they had to go back and do the replay. Well, I think that first one was a kick to the knee. That second one was definitely not to the knee.
That second one was right on the money.
I thought that was great.
That was fantastic.
And you know what? I will say, I got to give some, before I forget, I got to give some credit to Michael Cole and Corey Graves. I actually thought their commentary was really good for this event.
Yes.
Like I am not a Michael Cole fan. Really, but he did not irritate the living crap out of me, and Corey Graves didn't either, because he can kind of get on my nerves too.
Yeah,
but I thought they did fantastic, like almost in an old school Jim Ross way of like, they got everyone over.
Yeah, 100%,
without like drawing tons and tons and tons of attention to themselves. I thought it was a great performance by those two.
Yep. Last thing I'll say about the match, and this is one of the things that I'm really appreciating about, and thankful that the company is giving him the flexibility to do this, because I honestly, I don't think this happens in the Vince era because of the way Vince was. I love the fact of how Gunther won the match. I like that he didn't use his standard finisher. I like that he tried to use a submission hold that Miz got out of, and then he modifies it into a lion tamer / just modified Boston Crab to put him like. Those are the kind of details, and maybe this is me as an older, longtime wrestling fan, but like that attention to detail, I really geek out about. Like I think that to me builds a lot of cachet and builds rapport with the crowd, because he isn't someone who has the John Cena 5 moves of doom. You know what I mean? He's someone who is dangerous because he will put you away in different ways. And
yes.
And it works because they don't do that with everyone. Like if they did that with everyone, of course it wouldn't feel unique. It wouldn't feel special, but he is, the way he brands himself as the Ring General has to have some of that there to kind of underscore that moniker and underscore that tone to his character. And I thought that finish was just phenomenal, where
it was great.
Miz breaks out of it, pulls him right back, but throws the knee into the back, really arcs up and throws this Boston Crab that was just vicious looking.
Oh, it looked like, I was like, how do you not make that painful?
And you understand why he taps out. I mean, it's not like, the Miz wimped out. It's like, he's freaking contorted at this point. What are you going to do? So.
No, and that's an excellent point. And I hadn't thought of it in that way, but it really does play into that Ring General aspect and the way that I hope that they do more of that with him, and continue to do that, where it's like this dude could be, oh my gosh,
Was there spider?
Is this going to be a thing every week now?
Oh man, Kaylin 2, Uncle Todd 0.
No, it's 1-1. I caught her last week. She got me this time. I about passed out.
If I may quote our truth, you done got.
I did. I done got. That's true.
I'm wearing all white.
Okay.
Making handshakes with the ground.
Shouldn't you have been in bed about an hour ago?
I want to ask you questions here.
Yeah. You're. Okay. Good night. Go to bed.
Good job, Kaylin.
Well done. Good night.
Uncle Todd now needs to have a little bit of the shocky shock to the chest. Get him going again.
I need a sedative.
For the listeners, his daughter kind of snuck up and scared the bejesus out of him, and it was hysterical. I thought a spider had somehow crawled across or scared him, but no, he had gotten at this point.
Down here in the Blair Witch basement. What the hell was I talking about before my heart rate went up to about 130 BPM?
Gunther and the masterful job of being the
oh yeah,
general.
no, I hope they continue to do this as like this is a guy who can put you away in any which way that he wants to and is not shy about like, well, it doesn't have to be this way. Like I will beat you however I can.
Yep.
And I'm not picky about it as long as I get the win.
Yep.
And I think that's a great way to go. And this is the one that, like, it's not that when I said before that, you have both of the champs retain, it's not like I thought either of them should have lost. I actually, I checked out the WWE subreddit on Reddit the other day, which is very interesting. So now, of course, that's showing up every so often in my suggestions on the app. And someone was like, "Oh yeah, I think they should have had the Miz win the belt from Gunther." I'm like,
"No,
okay, you're on crack."
Not at all.
No, Gunther should have won. I think both Gunther and Rhea should have retained. No doubt.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be interesting to see. I would have liked to have seen in the press conference, because someone had asked about when he was going to focus on a world championship.
Yeah.
And I thought he missed an opportunity there, because he kind of was like, well, I'm not worried about that. I'm just, I would have preferred for him to have grabbed the IC belt and literally just held it up and like, this is my championship.
Yeah. Yep.
And this is the real championship for real wrestlers. I would have loved to have seen that, because then you can have some friction, and it sows the seeds for when he's going to move up.
Yep.
But it also elevates that belt as he continues to hold it, and just like, this is the belt for wrestling.
Yeah.
And continues like what he's doing. I felt like that was a missed opportunity.
Yeah. In
that press conference, I felt like that could have really generated some heat down the road.
But I will say, all of this does a really nice job. And again, this is where, we did an episode on this, where I think Triple H being in charge of creative now, you're seeing all these different, vines of stories being told, where when he does get to that point of challenging for the world title and will win, I think he's going to be the guy they put the world title on as this monster heel for a long time.
I think he's going to be the first guy to hold both belts. I think that I don't think they're going to take the IC championship off him. I would actually rather they not take the IC championship off of him.
Yeah.
I mean, because the one that comes to my mind, of course, is Ultimate Warrior. But I mean, I know it's got to have happened before.
Well, Seth Rollins did it briefly. He was, I think, the Universal Champion and the U.S. Champion for like a 2-month period.
Okay,
and I was actively defending both of those championships.
I wouldn't mind seeing that, because I think that could be an interesting line for this guy. No, I thought it was a really solid match. I think he's a solid character going forward, and this is what needed to happen. And to your point, if this is back when Vince has control, Miz gets his 9th IC reign to tie Chris Jericho, and we go on our merry way that way.
Yep.
Under Triple H, I think we stick with this and we continue building. So no, I give this one. Let me see, where am I at here? I give this one.
I gave it 4 stars. I'll throw mine out there first. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was a solid match, above average. Miz was at a different level. Gunther was at his usual level, but just I love that finish. So I got to go 4 on that one.
I'm going to go 4 out of 5 stars myself. I agree. It was a well done match, well executed. Front to back, totally.
Absolutely. Next match, we kind of talked about this one a little bit. Dragon Lee versus Santos Escobar. This was Dragon Lee stepping in for Carlito, who was
stepping in for Rey Mysterio, wasn't he? It was like,
well, yeah. There's kind of 2 levels of substitution here. Rey Mysterio is injured right now, and so we had Carlito, and then he got injured. So now we have Dragon Lee, who's basically like 3rd string in the LWO, apparently.
You remember Parks and Rec, where they would do the NPR segments. He's like, my name is Jim Forrester, filling in for so-and-so, who's filling in for so-and-so, who's filling in for like 4 people like down the line who, who this person had been filling in for this person, and so I'm filling in for the 4th fill-in. That's what this felt like, because I mean they kind of even acknowledged it in the press conference afterwards. I remember Triple H talking about how someone had asked about the protocol and all that. He's like, well, you just kind of go on with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very interesting lineage to this match for something that didn't have a ton of time to cook.
No, and as we talked about, I mean this was a heel building match for Escobar, who might I add, and I think they showed some of the video leading up to this. Escobar is doing a really great job of being this sort of maligned victim of, kind of twisting things into Mysterio being really the bad guy and he's really the good guy and he only wanted good things. And it was just the way they're telling the story is really well done. But this was just a heel building match. I mean, there was great back and forth between the 2 of them. You talked about the commentary. Graves had a great line in here somewhere where he talks about, I think he's passing judgment on Rey Mysterio being a bad father and saying, I should know I have more kids than Mysterio does. So
that was great. I remember that now. Yeah,
that was such like a Bobby Heenan or Jerry Lawler line, right
totally.
There. You know what I mean? It was like so well done by Graves.
If Graves keeps this up, if he could just he could. I don't think he's ever going to quite reach Heenan level, but he could trend in that direction because he's clever enough. He's clever enough.
Absolutely.
I just don't know if he can give up. I don't know if he can give up being like. There's something about him that's just too like, I'm just cool. And Heenan never worried about being cool.
Yeah.
You know?
I love the heel maneuver of Escobar trying to rip off Lee's mask in the middle of the match.
Yep. And then dragging him, like trying to take it off, but then just utterly just like giving up and kind of dragging him by it. I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
That's uncomfortable.
And then Lee had a great move where he was going to do a power bomb on Escobar, and he had to like adjust. And the way he kind of like it looked like it was just like brute force where he was bringing him up again. To land it was phenomenal. I love and I call it a double finisher. I know it'll probably be like argued that wasn't the case, but the original move was called the Canadian Destroyer. I know Michael Cole or Graves called it the South of the Border Destroyer or something like that. But that flippy move he did where it turns into a pile driver, that move, and then going into that Phantom Driver that he does, that was just sick. Like I love that they kind of showcase that with him, and they need to do that. They got to sell him as a threat, because I think this is all going to build to a WrestleMania match between him and Mysterio. I think we're going to see this play out over like 4 months or something like that, leading up to the big event.
Yeah. And I like the fact that they did lean into the fact, like, this is a guy who came out of the luchador tradition.
Yes.
He's just not wrestling a luchador style. And I like how they set that up, but yet there were times when he did slip into that style, showing like, oh, I can do this stuff. I just don't wanna.
Right.
Right. So I did appreciate that. That felt good. And Dragon Lee it seems like he's a fracking incredible athlete.
Yes.
Never saw that guy before that night. And I was like, when he came down, I'm like, all right. I don't know who this dude is from a hole in the ground. And then the match started. I'm like, oh, kid can go. All right.
I mean, it was a solid match from the get go, and
Yes.
but its intent was served. It was meant to elevate Escobar. Dragon Lee, I don't feel like lost anything. To your point, I think he had a very strong showing.
Yeah,
and this was just Escobar was the better man, and he didn't cheat either. Like he just looked vicious in what he did.
Yes,
and that's what they got to do with him is make him look strong. So, not quite a 4-0 match for me. I put this at 3.5. So I did 3.5 stars on this one. What were your thoughts?
I'm going to go 3 stars. I mean, because as good as the match was, actually, you know what? No, there's more than that. I'm gonna go with you. 3.5 stars.
All right. All right.
It wasn't match of the night. It was very good for what it was, and it had from what I could see, not a whole lot of buildup. But I mean, you're on your third option. So what are you going to do for that? I mean, given those circumstances, that's pretty damn good. And like you said, it was another match with a foregone conclusion. Essentially, there was no way this kid was upsetting Escobar, so you knew how it went. But they still managed to tell a good story and entertain you throughout, even though you know that this is going to turn out a certain way. So 3.5 stars. It was an entertaining match. I enjoyed it.
Nice. Next match was kind of a similar ilk because I don't know that, and this is, I don't know if we should like if the right way to put this is the blessing and curse of Rhea, but Rhea Ripley versus Zoe Stark for the WWE Women's World Championship. Can't honestly say I was thinking Zoe was going to come out winning this one.
Hell no. It was absolutely, the Miz had a better chance.
Yes,
and it's one of those deals. Like, it makes me think back to Mick Foley when he was talking about, he was wrestling. I forget who he was wrestling. He was wrestling like a championship match, and he was joking with Arn Anderson backstage in WCW. He's like, well, maybe there'll be a new champ tonight, and he says, and Arn said in his inimitable way, Jack, if that man has a heart attack and dies in the middle of the ring, you will roll him on top of you for the pin. Ain't no way under any circumstances you're walking out with a belt.
I am double A and all that implies.
It's like same sort of thing here. Like, Ripley is going over even if she is completely unconscious. It doesn't matter. You will find a way to roll her on top of you for the pin. That's it.
Hysterical.
But at the same time, again, like they told a good story through the match. It was entertaining. And part of that had to do with the fact I think Zoe Stark is gonna be a real asset to WWE. I feel like she's not green as grass, but she's definitely not well seasoned, and definitely hasn't quite found herself as a performer. I don't think fully. But I mean, no shame in that. There's a whole bunch of people out there still, who've gone through years of careers in any sport and not really found out who they are yet, before they kind of come into themselves. I
think that's the thing I struggle with her is like I don't get her character, or I don't connect with what she's like. When Rhea comes down the aisle, when Charlotte comes down the aisle, when Becky comes down the aisle, there's something you connect with there. When Zoe, it's just, she was with Trish Stratus for a while, and then, she separates from her, and it's like, what is there? You know what I mean? Like I don't feel like there's a well fleshed out character there.
No, there isn't. But you also, it's interesting you brought up those three ladies. Becky Lynch was dancing jigs.
Yeah.
Charlotte Flair was Ric Flair's daughter.
Yep.
For how long? Rhea Ripley was kind of a vanilla baby face when she started out in NXT, and has really hit her stride. Even though I would say she was already a star when she hit the main roster, even before Judgment Day. Since Judgment Day, I mean, good God, she's in another stratosphere. That is rarefied air for any. She is in the China level stratosphere where it is legit to talk about her possibly taking on some of the guys simply to not bury the entire women's division.
Yep.
It's not unrealistic, and they've already had her go toe to toe with several of the male wrestlers, and you look at it and it's like, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. That'd be interesting.
And it's not a size thing with Stark. It's just that, because she is smaller, but at the same time, it's just there's something lacking, like just
she hasn't
character-wise to connect with,
Yeah, she hasn't really latched on to that thing that is going to enable her. She hasn't found that way to bring out who she is and amp it up to 11, like the best performers do. Or to find that thing that really connects with people.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, it'll take some time. And I have a feeling that without, that with the current creative team that will probably happen. Because I can see some high points there. I can see some potential there for sure. It's not like looking at some of the performers and you go, I don't quite get this.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but I kind of feel that way about Shotzi. I don't really understand what's going on with her. Or even some of the guys in the, honestly, I mean, at this point, I don't even really know what's going on with Roman Reigns. And I've kind of been on that train for the last few things that we've reviewed. But, it's one thing if you're green and you're new to the business. It's another thing when you've been there for a while and, you're kind of at that malaise portion for your character. Like at least she's starting out, so you can at least blame it on that. I'll give her that. But I mean, a lot of this match I think came off of the fact that just Rhea's selling for her made her look so good.
To your point, like Stark did a DDT on the apron, and I think most of the nastiness of that was due to Rhea and the way she sold it. Like,
oh, totally.
Like Zoe looked very awkward in the way she kind of landed, but like Rhea just, I mean, she like sold that thing like a champ. It was incredible. Like she went like full vertical with her feet up in the air and then came down afterwards. I mean, she threw herself into it. So to your point with her selling, I mean, her selling is just top notch.
Oh yeah. And she does it selectively. Like there's a couple times she does it a couple times during the match and does it with like legit shots that you're like, whoa, okay. Almost like a little bit, I would put it on the same, in the recent past when Taker showed up on NXT and Braun Breaker sold that punch from him, where first you saw in his eye, like Taker, like, damn, I'm good. and then remembering, like,
still got it.
Oh, wait a minute. He just sold the living crap out of that. Never mind. But it's that same sort of thing. Like it just that thing can make or break. There was a way, oh my gosh, go in the Wayback Machine, because this was back like Tough Enough, wasn't it? When Triple H was like working with some of the guys in the ring and he had him go in and sell a punch, and one of the guys, he's like if you sold like that from me at an event, I'd tag you for real.
Yep.
That sort of thing. Like that is such a big part of it. She does that well and does it judiciously.
Yeah.
So that it's not like she's just flying around for everybody, but she will pick those times in a match to be like, whoa, okay. To give the opponent the appearance of like, wow, they might be in this thing.
Yeah.
And then she just completely buries them. But hey, that's what we're there for.
Right.
Right. Yeah. No, she looked fan-friggin-tastic, dude. And that match to me was just another example of how good of a performer she is, and why I'm like, sure, show up with like half of the Joker makeup, the Heath Ledger Joker makeup, and like these weird chaps that it looks like you borrowed from Shawn Michaels, and then the Gateway Cow ring boots, and then the weird like sort of like pin up.
Which
like
Graves noted was the same as Dom. So
yes,
like that grated on me a little bit. He's like, "Hey, she's wearing the same boots as Dom." It's like, oh, that could have done without that, sir.
But you do that, and then you've got like this, just like she can make all of that work.
Yeah.
And people are just like, she's awesome. I was like, all right, you're walking on water at this point in wrestling terms. There's very little that you can do wrong. And especially, I love that now that we've seen the video of at the end of the show, her flipping off a certain returning somebody. I thought that was priceless.
Yes,
because it just fits her character so much. And I'm like, go on with your bad self. Get your heat. Go ahead.
It's all good.
So for this one, I gave this one 4 stars.
Really?
Oh yeah, no, this is a
wow. Talk about generous. I gave this one 3.5. And mostly because of Rhea, to be honest. Like,
oh yeah, and that's the same thing. Like that's 3 of those stars are hers, all by their lonesome. And I give Zoe 1 because I think she did a good job of acquitting herself.
Oh yeah. She looks strong in defeat, but again, I think what she's lacking is just that connection with the audience in terms of who she is.
Yeah, but this was a good stepping stone. Getting your ass kicked by Rhea Ripley. There's worse ways to and getting your ass kicked, but in a fair, also getting in your licks. Like there's a worse way to go through an event.
Indeed. All right. Well, last match, the men's War Games match with Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio, Finn Balor, and JD McDonough of the Judgment Day, taking on Cody Rhodes, main event Jey Uso, Yeet, Randy Orton.
What is that anyways? When did I miss the Yeet thing? How did that happen?
It started at some point. It's become a thing. Randy Orton, Sami Zayn, and Seth Rollins.
I'm sorry. Who was that? What was that last one?
Seth freaking Rollins.
Thank you. Okay.
Randy Orton, of course, over the course of the night, and this is where I felt like WWE was playing with fire a little bit, was teasing that Randy wasn't. No one saw Randy backstage.
Yeah.
To which, of course, we got some CM Punk chants, which it's just like, God, do you really want to play with that or not? But they did. It didn't blow up in their face, which we'll get into shortly after. But thoughts on this match, sir? Because I felt this, much like last year, I felt the men's match had the better storyline going for it. And the action was good.
Yeah.
But there was like a lot of good storytelling around what was going to be Randy's reaction with Jay, because Jay, whether you I don't know if you were aware of this or not, but Jay was very key in essentially screwing up Randy, I think taking out Roman, much like he's done with others when he was part of the Bloodline. You have the ongoing storyline between Judgment Day, Cody, and Seth. So and then Sami Zayn as well. So there was just a lot there from a story perspective that I thought was maybe lacking a little bit from the women's match. But what were your thoughts, sir?
MVP of this match goes to Seth Rollins' jacket. Like wearing a couch cover apparently as a coat, which was interesting.
Yes.
I thought it was very interesting. So I was watching this. I had to watch this in a couple of segments, and when I was watching this part, my wife happened to be in the living room, and she looked up in time to see Sami Zayn making his entrance, and she's like, what's going on with that guy? He doesn't look like any of the other wrestlers. I'm like, I know, but he is so over with everybody. It's amazing. Like he doesn't look like he's ever been to the gym at all. Like he doesn't even look like he's ever walked past the gym. Like he looks like he goes out of his way to avoid the gym at the hotel that only has like 2 dumbbells and a Stairmaster. But he is so freaking over, you wouldn't even believe it. But I thought that was just hilarious. That like the same thought that I had like many times watching him. That was the first thing. Like she perked up as she just happens to look up at the TV. Like, who the hell's that guy?
Yeah. What's up with him?
That's Sami Zayn, dear.
Indeed.
I thought the match was good. I agree. The stories are pretty good.
Oh, there's that sigh.
It's just the fact that, you have the, where's Randy sort of thing. I felt that was a little, I don't know. It felt a little overdone because there's no way he's not showing up. It was such a foregone conclusion. And then again, it suffered to me being the second War Games match because it was very similar in terms of the time that the weaponry came out and the order in which the weaponry came out and how it was used and all of like that. All that felt very similar to the women's match. Which, I mean, hey, you take them individually and maybe it would have been all right. But if by being the second match, I mean, okay, so we're just carbon copying? Like, what's going on here?
I like Damian Priest bringing out whatever that baton / shish kebab was that he was wielding. That was kind of funny.
The Tanya Harding special. Yeah. And so that was great, except,
yes.
And here's the problem with all the weaponry, okay? Because he came out and whooped ass with that and threw it down, and nobody ever picked it up again.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't really get a good shot of him getting it or taking it out of his trunks or wherever he had it hidden or secreted. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he had it in the prison wallet. I don't know. In that case, I'm glad I didn't see him take it out. But it's like, okay, you didn't show me where it came from, and then it only gets used to like hit 3 guys, and then nobody bothers to ever pick it up again. That's the problem in a lot of these matches, and specifically in the men's war game match. Like, someone would use a weapon, and then it was almost like a video game where it once you throw it down, it disappears. For their intents and purposes, it just wasn't visible anymore. Like so that baton was sitting there. The pipe that Sami Zayn ripped off of the corner of the cage that was so obviously like just tacked there for him to do that. He used it, and then nobody else uses it.
Yep.
Like that to me is the downfall of that second match having so many weapons and following a similar thing. Like I said before, if you're gonna have any weapons, make it special. Have it be Cody Rhodes with the bull rope. It's, Cody's in the match that it made, baby. He's the American Nightmares in the American Dreams match for the first time ever, baby. He got the bull rope. He gonna get funky real bad with you.
I love the fact that Cody said to Seth, "This isn't for you."
Yeah.
Like at one point he's like, "This isn't for you. This is for them."
Yeah. But it's like, it became just a mishmash of weaponry and all that. There were cool moments, but again, then it felt like you're trying to recreate moments, like the moment when everyone did the drop DDT with Randy Orton. Okay, well, we saw this last year where everyone did the 10 beats of the Bowdren or whatever with from Sheamus, like. Same sort of thing,
but visual. I mean,
visually, it's a
I
great
hear what
visual.
you're saying, but visually, that was really cool that they did that.
It was really cool, but again, it's one of those moments where if you've watched it and you remember, then you're like, oh, okay, and it takes away, like you're saying, like it should be kind of, I don't know, it just made it less interesting for me. And those are the things. And granted, it wasn't a terrible match. I'm picking nits here.
Sure.
Okay?
I mean, clearly when Orton came in, there was a change.
Oh my gosh! And
in the overall pace of the match, and it clearly swung to the babyface team. You know what I mean? Like there,
as it
there
should.
Wasn't, yeah.
And freaking Orton, dude. I don't know. I can't remember him. I didn't look at any pictures or anything, but dude, is that guy freaking carved out of stone right now or what?
Yep.
Like, it reminds me of, like, again, Mick Foley, when he was like, when I came back from injury, I at least had the respect to look like crap. Everyone else comes back from injury and they look like they've been at the gym and all this. I came back and I looked terrible. Like I had been injured and laid up. Randy looks like he's on his, like, cut heading towards the Mr. Universe competition. Like, that dude, it was believable as a freaking wrecking ball. Like, he just looked like people would be bouncing off of him.
Yeah.
And so it worked in that sense. JD, what's his face there?
JD McDonough.
I don't know who the hell that guy is, but he just it's like someone took an Oompa Loompa and stretched him. I don't know what the hell's up with that. He's just disturbs me.
Man, if that isn't a Bobby Heenan description right there.
I do appreciate how like Dominic Mysterio just gets heat so much, and he does it by being such a punk and just like a little like wimpy punk. Like, he comes in and he just like he like bushwhacks everybody and then runs, and I'm like,
he's a house of fire with everyone, and then he gets surrounded, and then he gets his tail kicked, which I thought was just brilliantly done. And
that was
visually
beautiful.
Looked wonderful.
That was beautiful.
That was amazing.
Now, here is one thing that I think speaks to what you were talking about with the problem with war games and and how it needs to be changed. Because to me, it was especially egregious in this match where, oh, well, they've got the advantage. And so the heel team had the face team down, and it was like 1-on-5 or something like that. And, everyone else is like, unconscious and, comatose and maimed and all this. And then within 10 seconds, they're all up like they're fine.
Yep.
And that is the problem, because what are the stakes? Like, you just beat the hell out of these people, and they got up like, they just got in a video game, like they just hit a little medikit and they're, I'm fine now. I'm back to 100% health. Like within like seconds.
One missed opportunity I thought they had was, I thought it would have been a compelling story for McIntyre to just be all over Jey Uso the entire match. Like, everyone else be damned. He's just after Jey Uso.
Yeah.
Like, tell that story, because everything leading up to it was, he's really mad at Jey Uso. And then he's like fighting everyone but Jey Uso.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like that's what I want to see out of it, is have him just go after Uso and just beat the living hell out of him.
Yeah, especially if you're going to make him like as maniacally focused as you're building him up to be. Totally, that makes sense.
That's why he's in this match. That was the one reason he came into this match, is he wants to exact punishment and vengeance on Jey Uso because he feels wronged by him. And to some extent he did, but it was very short-lived. It was just a little sliver of the match. It wasn't something that was, being told like, okay, they're off in the second ring and it's just him and Uso and they're just brawling, and McIntyre is just, going to town on him or whatever. Like, that to me would have been, okay, they're telling a story here. But yeah, they went in a different direction with it, and just, it didn't, I don't know, it felt kind of flat to me. So
yeah, you're right. Total missed opportunity. Yeah.
For me, I liked in the beginning, I liked some of the tension between Damian and Drew. There was kind of that alpha male thing going on, and it kind of played in the match a little bit. I thought they did a nice job with Finn and JD McDonough, going to town on Seth while they had the advantage. But again, as we've been talking about, I think the downside here is that there's no consequence, though. Like, Seth is still in the match, and I'm not saying like it's got to be to the point where guys have to be like completely maimed where they're out of the match 100%, but it doesn't seem like any of the advantage that happens in the front half of it affects anything on the back half of it. And so that's where, I think, things, can fall a little flat sometimes just with the way the match concept gets carried out.
Yeah. It's the Grand Theft Auto effect. Like, you get in trouble with the cops and they're chasing you, and just as long as you can lay low long enough, then, everything is fine. Everyone forgets that you just committed a felony.
Yeah.
Like, everyone forgets that you just took like 3 power bombs and a splash, because it's 30 seconds later and you were laying over in the corner, but now you're back to full power with no, you're not selling any kind of injury or fatigue or anything.
I like the 3-way, kind of toward the end, the 3-way aerial assault from Judgment Day, where you had Finn Balor doing his coup de grace, you had JD McDonough, I think, doing something, and then I don't know if it was Damian Priest or who was Dom. Dom did a frog splash.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. We talked about the hanging DDT, or the 5-man hanging DDT. That was amazing. I love the one Orton did at first, like I mentioned. I mean, just you could tell the emotion was just flowing through him.
His adrenaline was through the frickin' roof.
It's funny. I watched something where Seth Rollins talked about, this goes back many years, but there was an outdoor WrestleMania, and they did a spot where Seth went to do his curb stomp finisher, and when he goes and jumps off of Orton, he was fighting Randy Orton, and he goes to do the curb stomp on him, and when he jumps off of his head, they timed an RKO off of that, where Randy flips into the RKO and nails Seth as he's coming down. And Seth, as Seth tells the story, he's like, what's really funny is Randy was supposed to pin me at that point, but he's so fired up that he forget. So you can already tell, like, emotions affect this guy when he's so he's feeding off of the crowd, who went absolutely ballistic, because it was an impressive looking thing at the time. I mean, he catches him midair and nails his finisher.
Yeah. And
everyone just goes apoplectic at that point. They're just like, what the hell did we just see?
Yeah.
And he feeds off of that, and he's just like standing there looking at him like, "Arr, arr," he's doing that like head juke thing that he does. And the way Seth tells it is, he was supposed to pin me at that point. He forgets.
Yeah.
because he's so fired up with the crowd. So I mean, clearly he's driven by emotion, especially in the ring when the crowd is super behind him like that, and the way he came back, you could just see it. And so like that hanging DDT was phenomenal. And then
what do you think about the RKO from the when they pitched the guy off the top of the freaking cage? And I love the fact, like, the anticipation. Randy's down there. I think he was even like, wringing his hands, like, oh yeah.
I think he even called the spot. He's like, put him here.
Like right here. I got it. That was fantastic because it was like you knew it was coming, but you're like, oh, I can't wait to see
JD
this.
McDonough, because that's got to be a tough thing to take. Because I mean, and you saw how he took the fall. Like he did a pretty swan dive right off the top. And I've watched it a few times, and Randy times it pretty well, but there's still that, like, I'm amazed these guys do this stuff, because even with Randy timing it the way he does, there's still that element of his head being up when he hits. And that's something that did severe damage to Dynamite Kid with his years of doing the flying headbutt he used to do. Same thing with Chris Benoit, where he would do that flying headbutt as well. Like, that does damage to the neck. And so, I think McDonough was, I mean, I haven't seen anything on the wrestling sites that he's injured or anything like that, but I was just, at first I'm like, that's pretty risky what they just did.
It's intense.
Yeah. But it came off phenomenal. And then I like the fact that Orton just kind of gives, Rhodes the thumbs up, like, yep, you put it away. And he throws the crossroads on Damian Priest and puts him down. So,
or even, and actually, just to go back to that moment when everyone just kicked the living crap out of Dominic, I thought it was great how he was in the middle of the three amigos suplexes. He got two of them, and then he goes to get the third one, and everyone just grouped around him, and it's like, oh man.
And Cody just kind of staggers away like, yeah, I've been getting my tail kicked, but now I'm better.
But those are some good moments. And the thing is, like, those are the moments that you forget some of that stuff. But when I saw it in the other areas, I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah.
Oh, and I got to say, Jey Uso doing his splash from the other ring. Top rope from the other ring, and he jumps over that divider into the second ring and lands it was just phenomenal. So
what was it? Wasn't it Sami Zayn, who I forget who he had? Wasn't it Damian Priest? He had on that diamond plate in between the ring, and he was just holding himself on the ring things.
Oh,
and
and he was like stepping on him like constantly. Yeah, like flurry of kicks sort of thing. That was hysterical. That was hysterical.
Great.
That was phenomenal.
I'm like, you know what, Sammy, you're the only one who can pull that off, because that looks so stupid.
Yeah. Yeah,
because you're basically a human Muppet, it just works.
Well, I went generous on this one. I gave this one 5 stars. I thought this was a very satisfactory final match. And
you were very generous. Yes,
I was generous. So I went 5 on this one. I liked it. I thought it told a good story, and the return of Orton. Cody winning the match, winning his father's match, I thought was well done as a stepping stone in the story that's being told as we go towards WrestleMania 40. So yeah, I'm all in on this one. 5 stars.
I guess you are. My gosh, it's like you had money on it. I give it 3.5 stars.
What?
It's 3.5 stars is a very respectable ranking, sir. I mean, everything.
I thought this match was worthy of at least 4.
I don't. I think that again, you have to put it in it's not in a vacuum. It's in the context of the show. It is the main event, and it felt that there was a lot of repetition between the first War Games match and this one. And I've got to hold it against that, because if you really don't want those two to be similar, it's not like this is I hate to tell everybody, but this is pre-planned, and you can determine, like, okay, we're not going to have the previous match was a DQ finish. You can't do a DQ finish. Okay, do something different. You could have swapped it up, but instead it was very similar, and it suffered. It did suffer, and the whole, like, oh, everyone's all right now with the no consequences, as you've said before, it does play into that, because I did notice it. And again, I'm one of those people who I try not to live in that moment of, like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next. I just want to watch the story unfold. I do the matches with wrestling matches, with movies, TV, all of that. And if I find myself going like, hey, wait a minute, you done something wrong, because I'm probably your best audience who is not going to do that. That's kind of my BS detector of when I'm like, okay, that was really friggin' obvious. If that pulled me out, and I'm like gushing with benefit of the doubt for entertainment in those areas. If it pulled me out, then okay, that tips the scale.
Yeah.
But 3.5 stars, because again, it's not like I didn't enjoy the match. I thought it was a very good match, and it. 3.5 is still good. It's still really good. It's above average. It's well above average. It's just not. It's not outstanding. I don't think there was any match here that would really. If any match here qualified as being worthy of 5 stars, to me, honestly, it's Miz and Gunther. Just for a pure wrestling match and for the drama that was created. But I know that that's also because I like actually seeing wrestling instead of Roman Reigns like punch, kick, stand around for 5 minutes before he decides to move or do something. So I kind of like actual action. Call me crazy, but yeah, 3.5 stars for me.
We agree to disagree.
Yes, we do.
Well, normally we would say this is the end of the event and we move on to end another thing, but as the man they call Tim, who was watching this live Saturday night, saw WWE was about to close the show out, and then this song hit, and the crowd went
my gosh,
insane.
Not insane, like whatever there is after. Delirium is closer to the fact. Apoplectically delirious.
The return of CM Punk to WWE was phenomenal, and just an amazing way to end the event, and done just masterfully, because as I explained to Uncle Todd, and I know as he watched there's always like this little kind of icon they pop up in the lower right of the TV screen when the event is wrapping up,
copyright and stuff like that.
And so you're looking at this like panned out view from the ring of the War Games match. The baby faces are celebrating their victory. Cody's music is playing. You're thinking it's the end of the event. I literally was 2 seconds away from just clicking my browser window shut. And
the only thing that saved
bed.
him was that the man they called Tim was about 4 bourbons deep as he was watching that point.
Amen.
He was still trying to find the mouse.
Little snub.
Where did I put the mouse? Hey, what's going on?
And literally within 30 seconds of that music hitting and seeing him walk out, I'm texting Uncle Todd like, "Oh my God, he's back!" And
completely spoiled the show
Uncle
for me
Todd's
because
gave me the Ron Simmons treatment. He's like, "Damn, spoilers!"
I know.
Like, son of a gun. I'm sorry.
Forgot. I did not realize that Tim was that far gone and deep into the bourbon that night.
Man,
he wasn't just knee deep. You were about chest deep.
It wasn't just the bourbon. It was the excitement of the moment.
It's the bourbon, the turkey, the tryptophan, everything.
I had assumed and I had thought that this just wasn't going to happen. I mean, like any window for him returning in the event just was closed. Randy came back. He, no way Punk was getting involved in this match. So it's like, okay, the event's got to be over. And Triple H and team did, like I said, did a masterful job because, yes, everyone and their brother thought this event was done. There was no Punk. The crowd wasn't revolting or anything like that either. They were genuinely celebrating, the end of this men's War Game match. And I think it was just, that was it. There was no chance for Punk. There were, smatterings of it across the event, but I think at that point everyone was kind of like, yeah, it's just not going to happen. And when that music hit, oh my God, did the place go absolutely just unhinged. Yeah. And I love how they ended the event because I don't know if you watch it all the way through when he, came back, but there's this point where he just lets out this howl, this like, and that's when they cut the feed and just move on to the ads for whatever the next event is and stuff like that, or the commercial or whatever. And I thought that was great. I thought that was a great way to end it with him just letting out this primal yell, as he's back. I don't know if you noticed, there was a guy when he was kind of leaning into the crowd that kind of hooked him a little bit and was yelling Chicago a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Did you notice though when Punk broke away from him? I think he like flinged the guy's like phone off.
Oh, probably.
The guy was holding his phone. He just like went like this, and it was like the phone I think went flying. And I'm like, for a moment, I'm like, I feel really. I mean, as obnoxious as that guy was yelling Chicago 5,000 times, I kind of felt bad a little bit. It's like you just had this moment where you filmed the man.
Nah.
Oh,
not even a little bit.
Oh, well,
the thing is, like, he probably thought, like, and he was a larger individual.
He was.
Like that.
He was.
And he probably thought, oh, I got him. And it's like, you got to watch out for Punk. He's wiry.
But I got to give a full 5 stars to that return.
Oh,
because
we're ranking the segment that had no.
We're ranking the segment. I mean, this deserves a ranking because, for crying out loud, none of us thought it was going to happen at this stage in the event. I mean, it was pretty much done at that point, and God, what a wonderful way to bring him back.
I'll give it 4.25 stars.
Oh, stingy.
Well, I mean, because again, it was. I give it mostly that because it was so well planned.
Yeah.
And in terms of pacing and in how they didn't take away, like, even it wasn't like right after the pin for the main event. They gave the guys in the ring time. They gave them their moment.
Yep.
And to your point, like, making everybody think like, okay, this is just the end of the show.
Yep.
And then they do it.
Yeah.
And by holding it all, because I don't know that anybody's ever done that for a pay-per-view, done something like that wasn't a run-in, that wasn't, interference or something like that. Just had someone walk out.
Yeah.
And kind of like, I'm here. And that's it. I don't know. I don't really know that's ever happened before. And I think the fact that they did it that way,
it was so different. It was
great storytelling and also great pacing. Like, they didn't take away from anybody else. In the same way that the performers and WWE did a great job of making sure that the CM Punk chants didn't get out of control because of boredom and taking too much time. Like, they really did. They presented a lot of well-paced matches that were entertaining, even if there were foregone conclusions. So kudos to everyone all the way around. It was not the greatest pay-per-view ever, but I mean, it was a really solid show, and it was entertaining. And at the end of the day, I mean, my God, unless you're one of the the schmucks over at the WWE subreddit who aren't satisfied with anything, I'm like, hey, how about you guys go talk to the Star Wars fans? You all would be great at a party.
I think we got to post in the show notes. I think it's on YouTube. There's a link of Seth Rollins' reaction to all of this. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
But this is, I think, definitely building toward a WrestleMania 40. And this will be poetic because one of Punk's biggest beefs when he had his first run was and we talked about this, he was never really booked as a main event in any of the pay-per-views, even when he was champion. And I think what a lot of the rumors are pointing to is we're going to have a Punk Seth Rollins world heavyweight title match at WrestleMania 40, probably main eventing one of the 2 nights. And I think that would be poetic. I think that would be very good of the company to give him that moment, because I think it's well earned for him. I mean, he had a 434-day run as champion. I think when he was a world champion, he treated that with the respect that someone with an old school appreciation of wrestling would treat it, and I think a lot of his frustration was due to that view not being respected and recognized, and it was under the Vince era. And I think, not that I think Triple H will give him everything he wants, but I think the two of them are actually, as much as the two of them butted heads, I think they're both of a similar mind, and I think that's why they butt heads. Because I think they both appreciate the old school kind of mentality of wrestling and the way things should be done. And so I'm excited to see that kind of play out. And I think it'd be great. I think, Rollins has been very vocal about his displeasure with Punk. And I think it'd be great to lean into some of the reality of that. Punk is great because of the reality of his character and the situations that he brings into his angles. That's what made his whole feud with MJF so great, to have some young fan who is now a wrestler and just kind of play off of some of the jealousy or insecurity or angst that this younger wrestler must have toward him. similar with Rollins. Like Rollins, I could see turning full heel on this because he thinks Punk is a hypocrite, and rightfully so. When you look at everything Punk has said, he's sold out this company for the last 10 years based on his gripes with it. And Rollins has been slaving away trying to build the brand and to be a main event talent. And I think there's a lot of reality they can play with here that's going to be really compelling leading up to that match.
Mm-hmm. No, and I agree. And I think the promo from Raw the following night kind of demonstrates some of that, and I think that, when he's like, I've changed, and I think even in Triple H after in the press conference saying, how much they've both changed, it helps a lot when one of them is no longer wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that you're correct. Like they can still have those gripes for a similar reason, but you can at least respect somebody who is like, who ticks you off, but you're like, well, they're ticking me off and they're rubbing me the wrong way, but they're doing it for the betterment of the business. So we can at least find some sort of common ground, and we don't necessarily need to have agreement. We just need to have a consensus.
Yeah.
We don't have to 100% love each other for this,
Right.
And I think one of the interesting things that he threw out at the end of his promo there when he was off mic.
Yeah.
On Raw was, I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to make money. Yep. Which to me is interesting because I think it could be very interesting the way that they decide to play his character out if they don't try to make him be 100% babyface.
Yeah.
If they still allow him some heelish tendencies and to kind of almost be like almost like an Austin character where he's walking that line in between.
Yeah,
where because people just love him, but he's still doing stuff that would be considered heelish.
Yeah,
I think that would be interesting.
And I think the other thing that plays into this kind of nicely too is, and I was reading this today, is on CagesideSeats.com, which is a really good, if you're into wrestling and you want to get some good scoop and some good, just kind of behind the scenes info, they're a top notch site. They were talking about, I believe, with Punk that, when he was in AEW, there was kind of the added weight where he was kind of the big draw.
Mm-hmm.
And coming into WWE now, maybe his attitude is different. Maybe there's less pressure on him because he's not the focal point. Like he's certainly one of the focal points, but he's not the focal point for that company. And the point being there that maybe the reduction in that pressure maybe makes this run for him a little more enjoyable and less stressful, because it's not, certainly his storyline is important, but it's not the thing driving the company like it was at AEW.
I don't necessarily know that pressure is a thing, because it seems to me like one of his gripes with WWE in that idea of like him treating the title as seriously, but not really being considered the main eventer. I think that he wants that responsibility. I think he's okay with that. I think he feels like he can do that, and probably even today feels like he can still do it. I mean, my God, he got on the mic for 8.5 minutes and just had the crowd eating out of the palm of his hand.
Yeah,
and just kind of,
but like
reviewing history in many ways.
But some of the angst that happened at AEW may have been due to the fact that he was so. Like I think a lot of the friction was, I think he probably viewed him, and again, I don't know anything, I'm just speculating based on what I've read, but it seems like, and it feels like a reasonable theory to say that maybe some of the friction that happened there with him was because he viewed himself as this leader carrying the whole company on his shoulders, where now he's going into a situation where he knows he's not carrying the whole company on his shoulders. He's there as a talent, he's there as an important talent, but he's not the focal point. And maybe that leads to a more kind of relaxed Punk overall, as opposed to what he dealt with at AEW. I don't know.
I don't think that dude's a guy who's going to relax.
Right.
I think he just is who he is.
Yeah.
He's a very intense individual. He, like watching that promo, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like if Henry Rollins was a wrestler. That sort of thing. Because there's just people who are just so intense that when they look at you, even though like you might be having a friendly conversation, you can tell like they are hyper focused on you, and that they're almost staring through you because they are so intent and focused on it. I think it had more to do with at least in my opinion, and just knowing some of the stuff they dealt with at WWE, it was almost like, oh, great, now I'm dealing with this stuff here, and it's not even like I have one person I can go to. I'm being, there's other people here who aren't as serious as this about this as I am. They aren't treating it seriously. They're not treating it as seriously as I want it to be treated. And the inmates are running the asylum.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was more the frustration is like, there's not even like anyone I can go to as an authority figure to be like, hey, what the hell?
Yeah.
Because that authority figure is letting everybody run it. And in fact, the idiots who are running it are also authority figures.
Yep.
So it's like, well, now what? Same. I mean, in a way, I can see it almost as a repetition of like, well, I got to put up with Triple H, who, what am I going to say? Who's going to go first?
Yeah.
Me or the guy who is the son-in-law of the owner of the company?
Right.
And the guy who has all the creative control. Gee, I think I'm going to be the one that goes. So that would tend to, I would tend to think is more about it rather than any kind of pressure or being because I think that's a guy who relishes that pressure, honestly.
We shall see.
But that's just my opinion.
Let me get the music one more time.
I haven't talked to Phil lately. He's been busy the last couple nights.
There it is. Embrace it, peoples. The funk. Oh, the energy.
Just a slowdown on those hits right before you get out of the intro. Oh, come on.
Best entrance music ever. Sing it, Corey.
Did you notice when they were it felt like the crowd was singing?
Oh God, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was so great. That was so loud. I can't even imagine what that was like.
Indeed.
I imagine like even the people who were in the ring who are like healing it up are still like in the back of their head like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like I got goosebumps that have got goosebumps.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And another thing.
All right, sir. It's getting late in the day here.
It is.
So what do you got for and another thing?
My and another thing is a new toy. Last episode I talked about the Atari system I picked up. 200 games. I was playing that with the sons over the course of the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. Had a lot of fun with it. But I had a colleague or former colleague of mine kind of expose me a bit to the remarkable digital notepad. It is a notepad that basically simulates kind of the feeling of writing on paper, but you're writing on a tablet, and it gives you all the flexibility contained therein, which is a lot of different note-taking templates you can utilize, can modify your notes, move things around as you see fit, and have pretty much a limitless space in terms of getting thoughts, ideas, and other things down on quote unquote paper or digital paper. I recently got one over the last week and have started using it. In fact, I'm using it tonight for our What Have We Learned segment that we'll get into in a moment.
Yeah.
But I would just highly recommend it. It is, right now they have a Black Friday sale, $70 off. So overall, it's I think like around a $500 purchase, which I know is a bit steep, but it is a great tool. I've started using it both personally and at work, and it is I really enjoy it. I'm definitely someone who remembers things writing them down, and so to have something like this is definitely a help to me, and as opposed to just trying to type things and try to remember, because I don't seem to remember things very well that way. So so if you're in the market for if you're not big on having thousands of notebooks for work or for personal stuff, this is a definitely a good buy, the remarkable notepad.
I love how your retro is actually going retro, like you're going backwards. So last episode you had the retro gaming console that was the Atari emulator.
Yes.
This week you have the retro notepad. So it's digital, but yet it feels like paper. I can't wait till next episode when it's like, I've got this this retro thing. It's called a wheel.
It's a digital wheel, and it'll.
Then the next episode will be, I've discovered this digital fire.
I have this hut that I live in.
Cave. It's called a townhouse, but it's actually a cave. If you think about
roast beast.
Well, that'd be the one thing that isn't retro. That's very much present day for you.
What is your end and other things, sir?
This past Saturday night, I had the opportunity to. I always love it when I can kind of double up on things like these. I got to play a gig, so I got to play 3 hours of music, and then I got to go to a concert, which is always a lot of fun.
Nice.
And I was at a venue in Portland, Maine, and it was to see a band called Model Airplane, which is kind of a bit of a local institution. It's kind of like an all-star band, so it's a band that really only comes together once, maybe twice a year. I think right now it's basically once a year, and they do their Funksgiving show.
Ah, nice.
And it is like, it's basically like a lot of the best, the best musicians in and around Portland. And this year, really the leader of the band is a singer called Lyle Davinsky. He's toured with bands. He's done his own stuff. He's an incredible songwriter. He's one of those guys as a singer makes me mad because I'm like, I don't think you've ever sung a bad note in your life. And it really pisses me off. But one of the other lead singers of the band was this woman, Gina Olibrio, who also leads a band around Portland. But she's I've also had an opportunity to work with her, and she's phenomenal, and also just a really, really nice human being. A lot of fun to hang out with and talk with. So glad that I got to do a show with her. It was so much fun. And she's one of those people who I heard her sing and I'm like, okay, I ought to just have you sing everything. And I'll just go sit in the corner and maybe order pizza for everyone. Would that be all right? Because I can't hold a candle to that. But she recently, in the last year and a half, 2 years, she released an album of original music called Atlas. And they did a couple of her original songs at this show with this band. And it just reminded me like, oh my gosh, these are fantastic songs. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes. You can buy the album off of Bandcamp and help support her as a musician and also get yourself some dope music because it's freaking amazing stuff. So yeah, Gina Olibrio, Atlas, go stream it, go buy it, buy several digital copies of it and give it to your friends and spread the love.
Excellent.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is about that time. We are hurtling towards midnight here on the East Coast.
I'm wide awake, baby. I'm wide awake.
Yeah, it's a miracle what a half a bottle of Maker's Mark will do for you.
Hey, it's Maker's Mark Private Selection, baby.
Oh my gosh, you have almost finished that. I was only joking.
I turned myself off. I'm not having any more tonight.
There's like one you might as well. There's like one finger left in that thing. My God.
That's about right. It's about a finger.
Jeez.
What have I done?
Well, here's a pleasant sight. Cirrhosis the Wonder Dog.
Passed out on his couch. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for sticking around and listening to us. We do certainly appreciate it. Thank you all to the members of the Free Range Idiocy congregation for hanging out with us. You can join the Free Range Idiocy congregation simply by subscribing to our humble little podcast here on the interwebs. You can find us at freerangeidiocy.com. That has all of our episodes there. You can download each of them individually. You can also subscribe right there or through the Podbean app. You can find us on, we are on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We are on Amazon. We are on Spotify. We are on Pandora. All of those regular places. Go ahead and search for Free Range Idiocy. You'll find us. We are also on the social medias. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. You can find us on YouTube, where we have full episodes to download there. Not download, but stream. So you can subscribe on our YouTube channel and get all of our episodes there as well.
Here are Nate ramblings on the YouTubes.
Yeah, there's plenty of and we don't even monetize. So if you get commercials on there, just know we ain't getting a cut of that. So feel free to skip that crap. Let me tell you.
Little snug on the commercials.
It's probably going to be some stupid commercial that we hate anyways because it's overplayed.
Yeah, of course.
Anyways, I should just start inserting like weird random like words throughout our episode. Like just pick a word and then see if that like if I say margarine enough times throughout like something that would be a product and say it like 20 times throughout the episode at random times, would we start getting commercials for that? That could be a new thing for us. Oh my gosh, it's getting late and I'm getting tired and I don't have nearly enough bourbon in my system like Tim does, so I'm not wide awake. If you have any questions or thoughts or concerns or any suggestions for a show, please send those to tim@freerangeidiocy.com and he'll get to you as soon as he sobers up. And now I'm going to hand over the show to the least idiotic of the two idiots who run this show. But not before I ask the second most important question in all of humankind. The first, of course, is nothing. It has to be, what is hip? The second being, the hell did we learn this episode?
We have learned the following, my friend, and I have all this written down on my nice new digital tablet.
You're such a shill. It's kind of pathetic, but it's also I admire.
Endearing, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Yeah, you commit to the gimmick. You commit to the gimmick.
Indeed. We've learned the following. We've learned Uncle Todd and the man they call Tim gorged themselves in disgusting fashion over Turkey Day weekend. So
we are such in Fatty McButterpants territory right now.
We are.
Everything. You want to talk about a little too snug? That was like the shirt that I went to put on Saturday night.
That's the pants and the shirt.
My wife was telling me, she's like, yeah, I noticed when you turned a certain way, you had one button that was just like barely holding it together. I'm like, thanks, dear. Appreciate that.
Appreciate the feedback. A little snug on the feedback.
Yeah. Got to tag me out of nowhere with that one.
We have learned Uncle Todd has two bourbon converts to his name, myself and his wife.
I prefer to think of you as bourbon acolytes.
Okay. I can do that, you know. Actually, speaking of which, while I do this segment, can I get a little of the cult of personality, please?
No, we're in the outro music now. You just
come on,
mind your business. Just keep going here.
All right. We've also learned Uncle Todd is the gravy champion for 2023. Well done, sir. Even though you left the apple out of it, but that's all right.
Yeah, well.
We've also learned from, I mean, not so much learn, but just requests from Netflix. You know, Uncle Todd and the man they call Tim will gladly take $350, whether that be million.
That's it.
Indeed. If you're willing, we will take it.
Yeah.
We've also learned that Free Range Idiocy, we have some ideas about improving war games, and we think they're pretty compelling. So
Let me talk to you.
Triple H, listen up, baby. We've also learned Uncle Todd is a bit stingy with the stars on this event, but the man they call Tim is not. That's your opinion, man. Man they call Tim is a fantasy football maven. 6-5-1, baby, third place this late in the season. And last but not least, we have learned CM Punk is back and wrestling is the better for it.
Yeah.
With all that being said, as my fine compatriot has already mentioned, we thank you for the listenership. We thank you for the downloads. And as we close things up on the range, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. The range is closed. And we thank you again. Good night. Godspeed. Be safe. Be healthy. Be kind. Be good to one another. And
is this ever going? You gonna land this plane anytime soon?
No, I'm pulling up for another.
Because I gotta go take a leak.
I know he does. I'm just trying to stretch this out to see if he's gonna do that.
I'm looking at one of these cans, wondering if I can make it.
You see, he does that jig where he's just like, my bladder's about to burst.
Can you just say good night, please?
Good night, please.
Oh my gosh! I'm gonna start making you do a breathalyzer before you start in your intro.
Oh, give me a break.
That's you. Shut off, because you start meandering on like. And let me tell you a forethought. And I thought that like, where the hell's he going with this?
Now get the hell out of here!